Have you ever looked at yourself and thought, I should be further ahead than I am now? The years are just flying by. I feel like it was January 1st yesterday, and sure, I'm a little bit bigger. I know more from mistakes I made in the past, but I'm so far from success I want to see with women, my body, my health, relationships, family, money, everything, my happiness. I know the pain you're going through of being ambitious, but knowing you lack discipline and knowing that you're a loser because of it. When you walk past a hot girl, when you see an overpriced Nike jacket, when you see a cool vacation spot, or you walk past these insanely expensive like high-rise condos in a big city, you know in your heart that you don't deserve those things because you can't sit down and work hard consistently on the things that matter. But that's all in the past now. Whatever advice you've gotten from these fake self-improvement gurus, throw that in the garbage. I've watched all those videos for years, maybe picked up some hacks here or there, but once I incorporated these frameworks that you're about to learn on how to build discipline, my life transformed. Every 6 months, I feel like a snake that just shed its outer layer of skin. Like I've had 5 years worth of growth and wisdom in 6 months. Think about how crazy it is. Think about how different you were 5 years ago. So don't hate yourself if you're not exactly where you want to be in your life. It's not like school taught us how to be disciplined and how to be successful, but thank God we learned Roman numerals and cursive and how to play the recorder. In this video, we're going to cover everything from the no BS guide to guarantee you permanently building discipline to how to create an environment that guarantees you becoming successful. This video is going to transform your life and you're going to absolutely love it. So let's get into it. Imagine this. It's 3 years ago and I'm sitting in line at the In-N-Out drive-thru waiting to grab my food. I just paid. And this was one of those very dark, just brutally cold winter nights. Kind of cold that just slaps at your skin when you're walking from the gym to your car or your car to your house. So even though the heater was on full blast, I could still feel the hairs on my neck and my legs semi-stand up. But then I see, all right, finally the car ahead of me is driving off. So I'm pulling ahead to grab my food. A bit agitated about this like massive long line I went through. Because after 5 p.m., everyone and their mom has to just run to In-N-Out like it's the new safe zone in Fortnite. But the second that I finally pulled up to that payment window, I felt a spasm in my heart. Like every single blood vessel was constricting me. And this immense pressure came down on my shoulders while my head went dizzy and my body felt invisible. You've ever done boxing before and somebody hits you very hard in the head? Like you lose the sensation of your limbs existing. That's how I felt. And I'm so thankful my foot was on the brakes. If it was on the gas, I would have slammed that car to the side of the building. And even though the heater was on full blast, I felt every single hair on my body stand up and cold sweat just form around my armpits. Because when that window opened, I was face to face with my childhood bully, the last kid that ever bullied me. And this kid put me through so much pain. I wish I could have stomped on his embryo like it was an egg, and his mother's too. And I just panicked. You see, 4 years before that moment happened, I was entering my sophomore year of high school in a brand new school in a brand new state. My family had moved from Chicago, Illinois to Bay Area, California, which is the areas around San Francisco. And I was very nervous to start school for 2 reasons. 1, I was ugly. And 2, I was poor. I had to go through both struggles because, God just loves to test his favorites. So imagine I was this stick and bone, skinny, thin, ugly brown kid, horrendous, like multi-pimple ass. My pimples had pimples, even in my ears, dry, crusty lips, dark eye bags, crusty, dry knees and elbows. And to top it all off, because it couldn't get any better than this, I just had to be nerfed. I was going through balding in high school. I had alopecia, so I had 4 of these 2-inch diameter holes all over my scalp where hair just wouldn't grow. And every morning I would take a black eye stencil from my mom's purse and then fill in those holes. It didn't look much better either. And then on sunny, hot days, they'd be dripping down onto my ears. Not fun. And then my family was also not well off. I had a single mom. And one reason why we moved from Chicago to San Francisco is because my mom lost her job and we just couldn't make ends meet on our own. So I'm going into school very nervous already because of these 2 things. And I'm thinking in my head, are these kids racist? I mean, did the 9/11 terrorists knock down any towers in this area? Should I be worried about that? So I'm overthinking in my head, like a lot of kids do. Maybe you did this as well. But then I remembered I had a saving grace. Because I ran track and cross country, I knew that all the runners ran over the summer before school started. So I figured if I emailed the coach, I could start running with the team before school started 2 weeks before, make some friends there, and hopefully the first day of school wouldn't be so bad. So that's what I did, and I showed up to practice on a week and a half before school started. And the second I showed up, I immediately knew, like with all things, there was a dominance hierarchy. You had the kids at the top, the fastest runners, popular, good looking, all that stuff. And then less and less and less attractive, less good looking, less popular, all this stuff. And at the very bottom, there was me. So as the season progressed, I was getting picked on by this one guy on the team, one of his friends as well. First, it was just, jokes we made when we were all running. Those jokes became more intense and more racist. And then they would throw my bag onto the bleacher. So we had like a bag we brought to practice that had like, water bottle and shoes and snacks. And they would just throw it up there. And then they would like steal my phone from my bag. And I had to like beg to get it back. Like, come on guys, my mom's here. I have to go. Please can I have it back. Please can I have it back. They would like pour water on me, as a prank and on my bag. One time they literally put snails, like actual like snails in my shoes. And I just like cleaned those out after when I got home. And to be fair, this was my fault. I let myself get bullied. I never stood up for myself. I should have drawn a line in the sand and said, you guys can't cross this. But I always acted like a class clown because I was so scared of an argument or a confrontation turning into a fight because I was super skinny and thin. Even though it's very unlikely to happen, like very few fights actually broke out in high school, but that was a fear of mine. And I also didn't want to be ostracized, excluded from the group as a whole. So I just took the pain of being bullied. But what made this a million times worse is that I wanted admiration. I wanted to be friends with the very guys who were bullying and tormenting me. Because this guy who was on the team, he was insanely good looking. Wheat waffles, 8 out of 10 rating. He had a good amount of muscle mass too. Most of the runners are very skinny, the long distance ones. He had gone to the gym, so he had built up a notable amount of size. He also had a very rich family. He's talking about how, when he graduates, his dad's gonna get him into real estate. He's making $25K a month, and he got invited to parties. He was good with girls. He had a girlfriend. Everything was going for him. He was on a different level than me. I wanted to be invited in those group chats and those parties, so I even had a Snapchat streak with him. And I'm so embarrassed to say that the very guy who was tormenting me, I kept a Snapchat streak with him because I wanted to be like him. But now you're caught up. This was the person I was face to face with when I turned to see that payment window at In-N-Out. This was the guy that put me through all these years of torment. And when I saw him, I had all these flashbacks of the things he did to me and how he made me feel like a worthless piece of crap. And my world got just rocked harder than Adam 22's wife. However, once this second or two of just panic of seeing him pass, I quickly composed myself, put on a stoic face, tried to recover from my breathing, from like this techniques I've learned. And he immediately saw me and recognized me. He said, "Hey, Ali, good to see you." And I wish I could tell you I just brushed him off. "Hey, thanks for the food, take care." But when you're, when you're so shook like that, when someone takes you by surprise, you're trying to act very friendly to kind of just calm the nerves. So I acted very friendly back. Go, "Hey, good to see you too." Then he was asking me like, "Oh, what college are you at?" And I said, "I'm at Santa Cruz right now. Are you still running?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I don't run every now and then, but we're just shooting the basics back and forth for a few minutes." But while we're talking, something felt very off, very strange. There was something wrong with the conversation, and I couldn't put my finger on what it was. That guy I'd known for years, and we had never spoken like this before. Before I could figure it out, he handed me my food, and I said, "All right, well, don't let me keep you. Have a good night." And I drove off. I didn't drive out, by the way. I floored it out of there like I was Paul Walker. And I remember I was driving over like the curb as to get on the street from In-N-Out, and the car started just rocking back and forth. The next thing I know, I just pulled into some empty strip mall. Don't know what direction I parked in. Don't know if I even parked right or where I was. Didn't even touch the food for 10 minutes, just thinking in my head, what just happened? Because what just happened, it made no sense to me. Like, yes, it was very shocking to see him, but the entire dynamic between us was completely different. I'd known this kid for years, but something had changed now. As I'm replaying this again and again in my head, it just hits me. Him and I are different. At that time, I was jacked. I was 196 pounds and 11% body fat. I was built up from going to the gym from years. I had become good looking. I'd gotten rid of those horrendous pimples and acne on my face, grown out a beard. I'd gotten contacts. I wasn't wearing these thick glasses anymore. I also realized that, wait a second, now I'm doing pretty well off. I'd gotten all A's in college, lined up a very prestigious tech internship for that summer that was paying me like an insane amount of money, and that would line me up for a 6-figure job easily. I'd finally gotten good with girls, and I had like a main girl I was seeing back in college and some side girls as well. I had a friend group that I loved, and they loved me back. I'd learned how to fight from a few years now of boxing and kickboxing. And without me trying to act all alpha and high value male and masculine and all this stuff, that naturally just came off in my tone of voice, my body language, how I spoke, how I composed myself. I could tell for the first time in my life, he was vying for my approval. But when I saw him, he looked worse than I'd ever seen him before. He had these dark eye bags under his eyes, he had some pimples on his face. He had a very thin, wispy facial hair. He led a very sick, unpleasant look, slumped over shoulders, a very sad demeanor to him. Like he was the kind of guy that just had a crusty sock under his bed, and he's working at In-N-Out. This was a bully that was better than me in every single way possible in high school. That was the top of the social ladder and everything. He had everything lined up for him. He was on top of life. I never thought I'd be anywhere as successful as him. And now he looked pathetic. And I was better than him in every way possible. And I know that we shouldn't compare, Marcus Aurelius, waste no time worrying what a good man should be and how to influence people, every man is my superior in some way. I don't say this at all to be egotistical. I say this more as like, how did this happen? I was a bottom of the barrel loser in high school. I was a liberal in high school. This was the most popular kid, or if not one of the most, on the team, and he had everything going for him. So how did life switch up? And I thought about this question again and again on repeat in my head, like it was a good song on Spotify. It's not like this dude had a car crash, and it's not like I won the lottery, I started taking steroids or whatever. But then it finally hit me. A few weeks later, I was doing this meditation session. When you meditate, you're supposed to be very focused and present on your breathing and relax and not think about anything in your life, but your brain just naturally drifts off thinking about some random scenarios and arguments in the past. And if you were the main character in this movie or just I realized it. There was nothing big I did to transform my life. The things I did were so small, so tiny, so minuscule. If you had that Black Mirror memory transcoder, like the grain thing they have, they could like project their memories, you wouldn't see anything big in my life. But when you zoom out from days now to weeks to years, I seem to have this crazy transformation that gets wilder every single year. But I beat him. I rewired my brain for success. I built discipline. I transformed my life because of the compound effect. And this is section 0. This is where the money's at. This is the big domino. This is the lab leak. The secret to building unimaginable amounts of success in your life and becoming disciplined is the compound effect. And to best explain it, let me tell you a story. When I was at the end of my sophomore year doing chemistry, I got paired up with this Chad Brown kid for a lab. Now, I had lived in the Midwest before this. I was one of 3 brown kids in my entire grade. I'd never seen a Chad Brown kid. I assumed that all brown kids were these stinky, scrawny curry cells that, did Kumon after school and took dal to school and then to open it slowly to make sure it didn't smell bad and no one said anything. But this guy, he changed my beliefs because he was this jacked brown kid who was incredibly charismatic and everyone loved him. The black kids, the brown kids, the yellow kids. He could kill a cricket match and then he would go lift weights and he'd dominate on the basketball court. He would get invited to parties and he would get straight A's. He had a perfect GPA in high school. His brother went to Harvard. One of his brothers went to Stanford. And now seeing a guy who looked like me but be so successful, it gave me a small sense of hope. Maybe I can be like that as well. And during the course of this whole lab assignment, as we're just talking about random like high school stuff, he's telling me, oh, bro, girls like big arms. I'm like, damn, that's crazy, bro. That's like a cheat code. And he's telling me, yo, you don't like track, right? Like because I was talking about some problems with some of the guys in the team. I didn't really like being so stick and bone skinny, running long distance all the time. He's like, bro, this is gym called Fitness 19. It's in Marketplace. It's like 5 minutes from here by bike. Like hella kids from school go. I'll take you for your first workout. It'll be hella fun. And so he encouraged me to lift weights. And that summer, I told my mom, I don't want to do track. I want to start going to the gym to lift weights. She signed me up to get a membership at that gym. She also made me get a personal trainer. So imagine I have a personal trainer. Well, there's hella kids that I know from school just working out in a group so close to me. But at those training sessions, they were set up to be 30 minutes 3 times per week, an hour and a half of lifting weights per week. That's shorter than most people's commute to the gym. People have longer warm-ups than that. People spend more time in the bathroom than that. And those were my workouts. But because they were so small and so easy and not these, David Goggins, we're going to smash our bones today and we're going to push ourselves to the ends of the year. They felt doable. And I stuck with it consistently. So I went 3 days a week, 3 days a week, 3 days a week. Now, a month later, I'm getting into the shower, lift my leg up, and I'm like, wait, did I see that right? My quad muscle, I'd never seen it like this. Oh, this defined, there's a little like teardrop shape near my knee. Whoa. Then I walk over to the mirror. I flex my bicep, and it's bigger. And I want to scream, Mom, get the camera. It's like, holy, this is crazy. even though like nobody could even tell a difference besides me. But I was so happy that I'd stuck with that promise of going to the gym consistently. And I was so grateful that I did these tiny 30-minute workouts that were over like that. Sure, they were still hard. Like my first workout, I did curls and my arms were stuck at 90 degrees. I had to go to a wall and pry them down. But I knew if I'd done those crazy like 7 exercise, 4 sets each, then abs, then cardio, like a lot of other people were doing, I wouldn't have stuck with it. I would have done it. It would have been hard and not gone back again. But because these workouts were tiny and simple, I stuck with them and I never went back. And because of this little gym progress, I then started watching content on how to get bigger in the gym. I was watching Scott Herman and Athlete Next and V-Shred, who I don't recommend the last guy, by the way. I started learning some tips. Okay, eat enough protein to grow. Facts. Also got to make sure that I put creatine in my water bottle. And okay, got to step on the scale. Am I bulking? Am I cutting? A few more weeks of that, I started to watch general health content. Okay, don't eat sugar, gives you acne. Okay, good thing. Get plenty of sleep so you gain muscle overnight and it's good for your body and all this stuff. Okay, facts. And guess what? I failed at pretty much all of these things. I ate way too much sugar. I stayed up late playing video games. I wasn't consistent on my diet. But the tiny things, those stuck. Do a 5-minute warm-up? Yep, I can do that. Put creatine in my water bottle? That's doable. Step on the scale after I poop? I can stick with that thing. The tiny habits stuck. The big, massive changes, even like they weren't even that big. The medium-sized ones, those ones dropped off and I felt worse about myself. And now imagine as the years are going by and I'm learning more things, finance from Graham Stephan and how to do well in school and how to cold approach and get girls and no fap. I realized every single time I set big goals for myself. I'm going to cold approach 3 girls every single day. I'm going to do 90 days of no fap. I'm going to save $1,000 per month in my Roth IRA. I failed. I would make a bunch of progress at first, and then the hype would die off and I would burn out and I'd go worse than square one because I felt worse about myself now, which just hurt my self-esteem. But when I broke down these big goals, the things I wanted to be, into tiny little habits, embarrassingly small ones where I didn't even tell other people, those ones stuck. Things like say hello to 1 stranger per day. That way I'll become less socially anxious. Then I can talk to other people. Then I can cold approach that girl I like from the gym and then she can become my girlfriend. Very basic things. Or invest $1 per day into my Roth IRA, or just don't use social media until after I've taken a poop in the morning, and just no watching adult content on Mondays only. Embarrassingly small habits. But I was able to stick to these habits, which made me feel better about myself. These led me to be more successful. I felt more proud of myself when I did them, despite how small they were. And after a while, they became like rhythmic, just part of my routine. I didn't have to think about that. And after that, it felt like I maxed out the XP for that little habit. Like a video game, like I've done this level so many times. It's time to level up now. The same way at the gym, when I was doing those 30-minute workouts for so long, it's eventually like, I'm already here. I might as well do like a couple more sets or do something else or maybe do that. Like you feel like you've maxed it out so much, you're ready, like you're eager to jump to the next step. And after a while of doing these, I started to gain momentum. Like a train that's just stationary, just stuck on the tracks. It takes a bunch of energy to get that thing moving, right? The same way with these tiny habits, they were hard to do in the beginning, especially to stay consistent with. But once you just get in the flow of doing them and the train's wheels start moving, then it becomes easier and easier to get that train to go faster. You naturally want to do more habits and better habits, and you're eager to do it, and then it becomes easier and easier as those habits get harder and more challenging. And the craziest thing was success in one area of life through being disciplined through these tiny little habits started to leach into other areas, and my life got better and better and better exponentially fast because success compounds. Because I would go to the gym and lift weights, I now had more blood flow in my brain, so I was now doing better at school, and because of that, I was happier seeing these better grades I was getting. That gave me the confidence now to go make some friends and talk to them, and now because I'm more socially not weird, I can now hold approach that girl, and yes, I got that girl's number, amazing. I'm holding onto her number like it's the winning lottery ticket. But I showed neediness on the date and she left me, okay? But now I have experience. So the next girl I cold approached and she became my girlfriend. And now because I have a girlfriend that I care about and she loves me, I'm less stressed out, generally speaking. And I'm not using my phone before bed, so now my sleep is improving. And because of that, I'm now putting on muscle faster in the gym, I'm doing better in school, and because of that, I'm making more friends. And this cycle keeps feeding itself, and you take off like a rocket to where my relationships, my health, and my wealth all skyrocket. I got 5 C's my junior year of high school. I failed tests, I failed classes, and that is not acceptable in a brown household. I felt like crying after I tell myself, I'm gonna get the work done tonight. I'm gonna get the work done, but I kept pushing it off. Video games. Now let me eat, let me watch TV. I really questioned, am I one of these like half mentally disabled kids? I was Googling, do mentally disabled kids, do they know that they're Am I one of these kids? But when I reframed my mindset to, instead of setting myself up to fail with this massive goal of this 5-hour study session tonight that I would have procrastinated and goofed off and been on YouTube half the time, and switched it to, if I decide to study, I'm just not gonna have my phone in the same room as me. I could stick with that little habit. And it did stick, and it grew over time to bigger habits and better habits and bigger habits and better habits, to where I graduated college a year early, 0 student loans, as a computer science major, one of the hardest majors in all of college. I made $215,000, my first job out of college at age 21, living on my own in Texas. And that was only one source of income I had. For years, I would avoid mirrors because of how ugly I was. I didn't want to see my own reflection. I used to count how many classes that I'm in. Am I the ugliest kid? It was pretty much all of them except for math, because it was, always some like fat Korean kid there. But I used to hate how I looked. I used to wear thicker, like oversized coats sometimes to hide how skinny I was. And I didn't want to go up because of how much acne I had on my face. But with this tiny habit of going to the gym 3 times a week for 30 minutes each session, which is less than people's warm-ups in the gym, less than some people's commutes in the gyms per week, that little habit grew to slightly longer workouts, slightly harder workouts, then to slightly improving my sleep, then to having a better diet, then to improving my sugar intake, and then to having better mental health, and so on and so on and so on, to where I ended up growing a thicker beard, ended up getting rid of all my acne, I had bright eyes, I looked so much more attractive, I had a body that I was proud of. I've now had girls that I've been with I never thought would have given me, I didn't even trim my pubes till I was a senior in high school. And now I've had a level of success with relationships and dating that I never thought was possible. And all of that success is because of the compound effect, which is the principle of reaping massive rewards from the tiny smart choices you make consistently. It's the tiny habits that build your discipline, because those tiny habits grow with time. They get bigger and better, become easier to do, and eventually you catch momentum and they take off. For so long, I thought discipline was these, David Goggins, just break your bones hard workouts and do that again and again, regardless of how you feel. I thought it was this Gary V, just work more, work harder, work on everything. But if you're doing that, you're not disciplined. You're motivated, because all of us have spurts where we feel like working really hard. We see some Andrew Tate TikTok or some hot girl and you think, I'm going to work really hard, become successful. And you grind a few days, a few hours, and then you burn out. And you feel worse about yourself because you couldn't stay consistent with it. And by the way, later on in the guide, we'll cover what discipline, motivation, willpower, all these words specifically mean. But if you take nothing away from this video but this, try to reframe your mind to see that it's the tiny habits, the embarrassingly small ones that you can do those consistently, that will grow with time and lead to much more success. I know it's not a sexy answer. You're hoping for some mystical technique I tell you that turn you into RoboCop, like some productivity machine. But that's the secret. Highly successful people, they aren't naturally more intelligent or more gifted. They simply have better little habits. Warren Buffett, when asked, said his secret to success was reading 10 pages of any book per day. Oprah Winfrey said her secret was journaling for 5 minutes every single morning. Ariana Huffington, who created the Huffington Post, her secret was making sure she gets just 8 hours of sleep every single night. Sam Walton, who created Walmart, said his secret was every single day he just asked one employee, what can I do to improve the store? And the same thing with pro athletes and people at the very top of their craft, because little habits don't stay little. As we mentioned, eventually they start to become easier and easier to do, and you're able to do more and able to do more and able to do a higher workload. And like a rocket, they take off once they catch momentum. Like a rocket, it takes a lot of energy to get a rocket off the ground. But the higher it gets, the easier it is for it to keep going. And once it reaches the upper atmosphere in space, there's no stopping. A rocket takes more energy during the first 5 minutes of liftoff than the entire flight to Mars or the moon and back. And secondly, once you've created them, habits become very hard to change. They stick, especially the longer you have them. When I started my self-transformation journey and I got big into fitness, and eventually after a year or two I had these crazy transformations, all my family came to me. How do I get in shape? How do I build muscle? How do I lose fat? And I realized these people haven't exercised for 40 years. They can't even squat down. They can't even tie their shoes without putting their leg up on something. They're so utterly out of shape. How did this happen? It's because this little habit of, I just don't exercise every day, grew and grew, and their body got tighter and more stiff and more resilient to change, and more fat kept growing on them. I realized that your habits grow on you like the roots on a tree. If you imagine like a little like succulent that, girls have on their window, you could rip it out easily, just like that. Now imagine there was a 4-foot like sapling outside a tree. I mean, 3 or 4 feet, like its roots are fairly deep, but if you pulled at it for a week straight, I think you could rip it out of the ground. But a 30-foot oak tree, its roots are so deep, nobody could rip it out of the ground. Your habits work the same. Is it hard to lose weight if you've been obese for 2 years? Definitely, yeah, it's hard to change those habits of eating, 100%. But if you've been doing that for 20 years, it's a different level of difficulty. Like you've seen these, my 500-pound life videos, right? Where these people they balloon up to insane amounts. And you're wondering, how did they even get like that? Well, every day they made their little habits. And their habits over time made them. And now, even though those people know they're on the brink of death, they have 8 months, a year left to live. If they don't lose the weight, they can't do it. Their habits are too deep in them, and we know what happens. And that's why I tell everyone it's so important to realize that although the compound effect can work for you in building your discipline, these little habits of not using your phone when you work can turn into like 3 intense 90-minute deep work sessions during your day. It can also work against you because your bad habits grow and grow and grow, and they catch momentum and they get exponentially worse with time. That's how you end up with homeless people and drug addicts and alcoholics. Nobody wakes up one day and thinks, I want to drink 10 bottles of alcohol before noon, or I want to pretend that me being 350 pounds, looking like Jabba the Hutt, I'm somehow a body positivity and all bodies are beautiful, healthy, and all this garbage. To show you this point in a little bit more detail, try to imagine there are 2 identical 20-year-olds in 2 separate universes. Same parents, same upbringing, same college, same everything. The only difference is at age 20, one of these kids decided he's going to have a few bites of dessert after 3 dinners per week. Everyone would tell you, every doctor would say, oh, that's totally healthy. It's in moderation, totally normal. 90 calories, 13 grams of sugar, totally fine. Go for it. But guess what? 3 weeks go by and the guy who's eating dessert, his sleep is just slightly worse, just a little bit off. He wakes up a tiny bit more grumpy and more irritable. But nobody, not even his best friend and roommate, can even tell a difference. It's such a tiny habit. But now imagine time's passing by and this guy who's eating sugar, after 6 months, he now has a few spots of acne on his face. He's a little bit more heavy, just 2.5 pounds, right? And his GPA, his grade point average, went from a 94 to a 92.5. Still, I mean, there's no real difference between him and the other version of him. It's a small grade point difference. 2.5 pounds, can't even tell a difference. It's nothing, right? But now 2 years have gone by. And this guy who's eating sugar, he's now 7 pounds overweight. He now has a bunch more acne on his face. He now is way more irritable. He's having trouble sleeping. His GPA has dropped from a 92.5 to an 89. He lost that internship opportunity he wanted so bad. And his rejection rate with girls is a little bit heavier and he's a little more acne, has now increased 7-8%. But the version of the guy who's just doing the exact same things every single day, except this one tiny habit of dessert, he got that internship. He still has that 94 average. His rejection rate with girls is the exact same. And life goes on. And the years go by, and the years go by, and the years go by. And now these people are the exact same, this one habit between them, but they're now 30 years old. And the guy who's eating sugar 3 times a week for a couple bites, he's now 40 pounds overweight. He has horrendous acne. Has so much trouble sleeping. He's breathing through his mouth all the time. He's just disgusting to be around. He's not able to focus at work. He's always taking naps during the day. His doctor tells him he has high blood pressure and he has this problem and that problem. So now he's even more stressed out and agitated. He's not fun to be around. No girl wants him. His coworkers at work don't like him. So guess what? His boss fires him. And because over these past few years, he's not been doing well in any other aspect of life, he now is 30 years old. He's broke, doesn't have a job. He's lonely because no girl likes him. And he's not healthy because he's 40 pounds overweight. But the other version of this guy who didn't have this bad habit of dessert, he's 30 years old now too. Well, guess what? He doesn't need to take naps in the middle of the day because he has healthy energy levels because he sleeps well overnight. So he's spending that time going to the gym. And after 10 years, he's built up a 6-pack, 10% body fat. He looks jacked. And because he's so good looking, he gets asked out to events where he meets people and girls. And now his charisma and social skills are off the charts. And because he has so much time now, because he's not taking naps in the day, he can also do learning for work. And guess what? Because he learns and he reads books and he does courses, He now has gotten 3 promotions because that internship turned into a full-time job. Companies want him. He's making so much money. He's able to retire his parents. They can now relax. It makes him even happier. He has a fiance now. He's attractive. He has friends. He has everything going for him. He has health, wealth, and relationships. Well, the other version of him is that rock bottom, lonely in his apartment, and that guy eventually turns to drugs, alcohol, and his life even faster goes downhill. Ends up voting for Bernie Sanders. The story that I'm telling you isn't some kind of crazy exaggeration. This is reality for most people because most people are so utterly unaware of their bad habits. Those kids that you went to high school with, imagine those kids, you sat next to them in class for years. You saw them at graduation all happy, all excited for their life, looking forward to everything that they'll do. Those kids that you spent all that time around, they will end up broke, fat, and unloved. Because the average American has less than $1,000 savings account. The average American is not overweight, is not, on the heavier side. They are obese. A couple years, Lizzo is going to be on the cover of Health magazine. And the average American is either divorced or single. And it's simply because they don't realize the power of the compound effect. They just mindlessly, throw a bag of chips into my lunchbox, open the pantry, candy bar, let me eat it. I'll skip my workout today, it's fine, I went last week. And I'll turn the shower on hot. And I'll hit the snooze button, not a big deal, whatever. I'm catching up on sleep on the weekends. And their habits, they're so utterly unaware of, compounded over time, lead most people to live a miserable life. It's like they're driving a Tesla and you ask them, where are you headed to? I don't know, the car's on autopilot. Their habits are steering their life and they likely won't enjoy the destination. Now, to be fair, there might be a lot of these people around you who don't have good habits, but they start off way ahead of you. They may have, 10 out of 10 genetics, a strong jawline, high metabolism. Maybe they have a dad that can, help them get their first job that does really well. Like my bully had, he started out way ahead of me. But there'll be a difference between you guys in 2 years, 5 years, an insane one in 10 years. And when you see those same people that you spent all that time with in high school, at your high school reunion in 20 years, you will not recognize most of them. And I'm 100% sure that's what happened to my bully. Like so many people, he wasn't aware of his tiny habits. Just using his phone first thing in the morning. I'll skip a couple workouts here. I did eat fast food, but these burgers are so good. And whatever, I'll get this list of clients my dad gave me later. And his life starts to steadily decline downhill till it picks up a little bit. Now, I'm 100% sure he had bursts of motivation. He saw some Andrew Tate TikTok and I'm going to be productive now. I'm going to be back in the gym. I'm going to be pumping weights. I'm going to hit this list of clients. I'm going to go hard. I'm going to change my life. This is exciting. I'm going to change everything. I'm going to change my life. And then that motivation died off after a couple days, couple weeks, and now he feels worse about himself because he tried so hard, he can't stay consistent with it. Right back to square one. Except there is no square one. There is no maintenance or staying steady. Every organism is either growing or it's dying. Because if you're just trying to stay steady, like imagine a business trying to stay steady. Well, other businesses, they're improving and that's knocking down your social rank. Like, have you seen a stagnant body of water, like a puddle or a pond? It's like gross and algae is growing in it and there's like dead stuff inside and like worms and crap and it smells so bad and you just walk around it. More likely, because my bully's life was getting worse, because his motivation was lacking and every time he got motivated, he failed, he felt more and more miserable. Started doing low tier, kept doing them, did more hardcore something else to waste his time, and his life got worse and worse and exponentially worse as momentum kicked in. And I guarantee you, wherever he is right now, it's 50 times worse than when I last saw him 3-4 years ago. The compound effect is happening to you as well right now, for better and for worse. It's why the rich get richer and the poor get poor, why the disciplined get more disciplined and the losers become bigger losers. And the Bible said it best. I read this line: to he who has plenty, more shall be given. To he who has little, more shall be taken. Just paraphrased, of course. And the majority of the frameworks we'll learn in this guide for building discipline and becoming successful rely on the compound effect to get you there. So to end this section, your SS, your section step, is to try to take a few seconds to think about what is one tiny bad habit that you do, that you overlook pretty much all of the time. And if you didn't do it and you devoted that time and energy to something else, you would go further in life in a direction that you wanted. For me, this would be just sitting in my car after I drive somewhere. Like I'll drive home and I'll spend like a few minutes on my phone in my car and then I'll get out and like go into my house. Or I'll drive to like the gym and I'll sit on my phone for a few minutes and waste a few minutes there. And then I'll put the phone in my pocket and then I'll go enter the gym. But if you think about it, it's like 5 minutes here, 8 minutes here, 7 minutes here. I'm wasting about 40 minutes per day just sitting in my car on my phone. But if I spent that time doing something productive, that would add up to like 300 hours per year. And I overlook it. So what's yours? Section 1, false beliefs. So imagine this. A year ago, I'm telling a friend of mine about the compound effect, how crazy it is, how these little habits, they pick up with time and grow with momentum. And he looks at me and says, well, what about Andrew Tate? I'm like, what do you mean? What about Andrew Tate? He's like, well, he was broke pretty much all of his life until he was 28. And then, because, these fights don't really pay that well, and he had to pay the taxes, and money goes to his coach. And then he had the idea of starting a webcam company, and boom, his income just insanely a million X, like nothing before. He became insanely wealthy. And what about these college kids? Like the Facebook and Robinhood, right? They were so broke, they had a good idea, and boom, their income insanely, they got acquired for $2 billion by some company. So how will me flossing my teeth or picking up some socks, like how will that make me a billionaire? How will reading 10 pages of a book per day turn me into Walter White or Warren Buffett? And I thought about this and said, good point. Let's take the Andrew Tate example. Not to pick on him, but because everyone knows who he is. He was pretty broke until he was 28 when he had this webcam company, right? But how did he get those girls on the webcam company? Well, in the story, he talked about how they were ring girls. He would fight in his professional matches, and he'd pretty much just pick the girl he wanted to sleep with, and that girl ended up liking him. But to get that girl, he had to win the match. I mean, it's hard to love a loser. Just ask Logan Paul. How did he win those fights? Well, he had to train for 6-7 hours per day at 100% focus in that gym. Well, how did he get to that level? Well, to have a coach and take it that seriously, he had to win amateur fights. To win amateur fights, he had to train for 3 or 4 hours per day, still very focused and dedicated. Well, how was he able to just stay focused and dedicated for 3 or 4 hours? Well, he played chess, right, as a kid. So for hours every day, he was so focused on the chess table, just focusing on all the moves in his head and all that stuff. Well, how was he able to do that for 3-4 hours per day? Well, actually, he got that from playing chess with his dad as a kid. When his dad would ask him a choice, we can either watch TV by yourself, or you and I can both play chess together. He chose to play chess with his dad. Also, how did he know what to do in the business? How to monetize it and how to blow it up and make it so successful? Otherwise, nobody was watching. Well, it turns out that wasn't his first business. He started dozens of businesses before that. He was a part owner of a hotel in Thailand. He had a business selling TV advertising. And how did he get the business selling TV advertising? Well, it turns out his first sales job he did so good. One of the guys said, hey, you and me leave this company, start our own business. Well, how was he able to just stay focused on just selling so well at this job he was in before? Well, it turns out he had a job before that where he was selling windows to people. He was going door to door and selling. Well, how was he able to just sell door to door? Have that discipline to do that? Well, it turns out he used to work as a kid over the weekends at his uncle's fish store, where he would just pick up boxes of ice and carry it from one end to the other end. And random boxes of stuff, just pick them up from one side of the store to the other side, again and again, for hours every single weekend. These two little habits of just picking stuff up and moving it, choosing to play chess with his dad and not watch TV, grew and grew and grew to where when he had that idea for a webcam business, it looks like overnight success to us, but in actuality, he was doing the little habits again and again consistently with time. And also these popular tech companies that just blow up in college. One day, no one's heard of them. The next day, everyone knows them, like Facebook or Robinhood, which is a very popular investing app. This wasn't overnight success either. It turns out that was not Mark Zuckerberg's first business. He started 6-7 businesses before then. He was building messaging apps for his dad's dentist company. And also, he made a habit to just work on coding projects in his free time all throughout high school. And how did it all start out? Well, it turns out in middle school, he had an option to either stop by his school's computer lab for 30 minutes before he went home or go straight home. And he chose this little habit of stopping by his school's computer lab. Little habits compounded with time. When they had a chance to execute, these things blew up faster than a Gen Z's attention span. Now, yes, of course, to state the obvious, there are exceptions. People win the lottery every year, they get lucky, they get things handed to them and end up in, a Mr. Beast video and win a free house or an island or a car or a yacht or whatever. And also, bad things do happen to good people. Someone could do everything right, work hard, start a business, get that business to grow, and then a BLM riot happens outside that business and someone torches it, or some kids did nothing wrong and they're in Gaza or Palestine or Ukraine, whatever war is happening in your time right now, and some rocket lights them up like a Christmas tree, and they did nothing wrong to deserve that. But you're smart enough to know that exceptions don't disprove the rule. Like, how many fingers do humans have? Well, we have 10 fingers. Oh, but people are born with 11 and 12, and people lose fingers. But you know the answer to this question. And as Aristotle famously said, you are what you repeatedly do. And that's why everyone in their life, they generally get what they deserve. An uncle of mine, he was a lifelong smoker. I love the guy to death. Like, he's so near and dear to my heart. Took care of me when I was young. I love the guy. But if you're a smoker, you are what you repeatedly do. What happens to smokers? Well, they get cancer. So he got cancer. And he had to suffer through all that pain and torment. And then my mom asked me to call him and say, I'm sorry this happened to you and you don't deserve it and all this stuff. But how can I say that? You made your choices and your choices made you. Add it up, like $5 on average for a pack of cigarettes over all those years and the time you spent to like drive to the store to get them and come back and all this stuff. You could have done something way better with your time. You could have invested that money and learned about something, and you could have become a multimillionaire. The same way, yeah, people do win the lottery every single year, but 70% of lottery winners go broke within 5 years, and even more as time goes on, because if you buy lottery tickets, you're not financially responsible. And if you're not financially responsible, you don't deserve to be rich for a long period of time. Just like how generational wealth, it doesn't last more than 3 generations. If I'm a billionaire, it's very likely my great-grandkids would be broke because they don't know how to manage money and work hard and earn money. So although there are exceptions, over a long enough timeline, everyone does generally get what they deserve. And that's why these get-rich-quick schemes and these lose 50 pounds in a month, like magazine cover hacks, don't work, and they stack that weight back on like it's Legos. Because we are what we repeatedly do. But now secondly, even though you might believe in the compound effect, maybe you're thinking that this isn't for me. I don't like keeping track of tiny little habits in my life. I don't hit my big goals really soon, so I'm not going to bother with this. Realize that this is your ego speaking, and I had this problem as well. And the reason why I've been drilling so many stories about the compound effect, where we get into the frameworks to build discipline, is because when it comes time to implement them, the majority of people, their ego gets in the way. I had an acquaintance of mine in college who wanted to be a computer science major, and he failed an introductory to math class, a class that he'd already taken in high school. And when he asked me, like, bro, give me some study tips. How'd you do so well? And I remember you in high school, you weren't like that smart. What'd you do? And I told him, if you want to become an A+ student, buy a half gallon, like a big water bottle, fill it to the max in the morning, and drink that instead of drinking 3 coffees per day. And he's like telling me, oh, it makes sense. Caffeine, it does dehydrate you. And if you drink water, studies show that actually it helps you remember stuff by like 40% more, especially long term. And I'm definitely going to do that. It's such a smart idea. That's what he said. I looked in his eyes and I knew for a fact he wasn't going to do it. He was looking at me like, Ali's higher than Kamala Harris. There's no way this tiny little habit's going to transform to getting an A in math and doing well. No. This is beneath me. So he didn't do it. His ego got in the way. Got all motivated. I'm going to study hard this quarter and I'm going to do well in this math class. And once that motivation died, he was worse than square one. But he started that habit of the water bottle, maybe he was studying a bit better. And then we've inspired him to start up other habits, like don't use his phone in the same room, or start doing deep work sessions, or study in a first thing in the morning. But he didn't do that. Momentum never kicked in because he wasn't consistent with a tiny good habit. And now he ended up doing some other major in college. I don't even know. He's down in a good spot. So try to ignore that voice in the back of your head that's saying, I don't want to do this habit. It's a bit of extra work. It's kind of beneath me and I'll do something else. I'll really just focus and study hard tonight instead. Try to realize what's easy to do is also easy not to do. So why not just do it? And if we're being honest, that voice in the back of your head, it hasn't taken you or me very far in life. Our brains aren't always on the same team as us. Our brains told us hundreds, if not thousands of times to watch adult content when we knew what damage it was doing to our PPs in our mind. It told us to eat food that we would know we would regret the next day, and we still ate it. It told us to not talk to that cute girl that we liked because it might be, kind of awkward or something, and you regretted that every single day for years. I wish I had talked to her. Try to realize that ego is the enemy. Now, lastly, you might believe in the compound effect, but maybe you're thinking that, it doesn't work in our new world that we're in. Housing prices are crazy expensive, getting more expensive. The dating market's getting more cutthroat. Inflation's going up. We need fast progress quick if we're going to make it to be successful in this new world. Let me ask you this. Remember every now and then when you watch Shark Tank, you saw a business that had crazy high, insane levels of demand for their product. And the business was struggling to keep up with that demand, but they were still taking in lots of orders And then sending those orders out weeks or months later would lead to people being very upset. And then also, they're trying to expand to so many locations, and because of that, their locations are all being very poorly managed. People are very upset by. And then also, they're trying to get their products everywhere, on every single retail shop, before someone else makes a knockoff. And because of that, it causes problem with the manufacturers, the distributors, the retailers. This company, its fast growth is the very cause that could lead to that company failing. You're right, the world is changing very rapidly, but you actually don't want super fast, insane, unsustainable growth out of the blue, because that growth leads to failure. And when that growth slows down, you feel much worse about yourself. For example, on YouTube, if I have a video that goes viral, like out of the randomly, it feels quite nice. Like hundreds of thousands of views, I'm making some extra dollars. But then every single video I make after that, which doesn't do anywhere as well, I feel worse about, because that's the new baseline. And then when the video is viral, I'm thinking, oh, how do I monetize this? And I'm not thinking about how to actually grow the channel sustainably. The YouTuber MKBHD is a massive tech channel. He talked about one of the best things that ever happened to him was never having a video go viral. He just made his content consistently better and better and better and better, and then eventually caught momentum. And now he has a multi-million dollar business and a couple million subscribers on YouTube. And even with lottery winners, some of these kids from the ghetto who grow up to become, pro basketball or football players, them making money so fast, they don't know how to store it, like what account to use, how to avoid taxes on it, how to set up trusts and LLCs to avoid like liabilities for themselves. And they screw it all up worse than the Fire Festival. The world is changing fast. The vehicle of wealth will always be changing. Yesterday it was e-commerce, today it's content, tomorrow it might be AI. But consistency in the right direction always wins. It's a story as old as the turtle and the rabbit. So to end off this section, your section step is trying to take a few seconds to think about a famous person you look up to. Maybe it's a basketball player, a musician, a businessman, an athlete, whatever the case might be. And just think, what did they likely do every single day consistently to get them to where they are now? What little habit was it? And once you've thought about that, just go on Google or ask ChatGPT, what was the little habits in their routine they did for years on end to get them there? Because you might be surprised at just how tiny some of these habits were. Something like playing guitar at a pizza restaurant every single Friday for a couple years, shooting 10 free throws at the end of every single practice for the past 10 years. Or it could be like mine. I looked up Abraham Lincoln. He lost dozens and dozens of local tiny elections before he eventually got very good at becoming a politician and became a president. So think about and then Google yours, because you might be surprised at how tiny some of these habits are and how they compound with time. Section 2, proud to be you. Imagine this. It's Saturday afternoon turning to evening. The sun has started setting. It'll be dark in about 30 minutes, and the air is a perfectly crisp cool with a very, very slight little windy chill coming in that's bringing in a very fruity aroma. Perfect light jacket weather. And I was in Napa, California. And if you don't know, Napa is famous worldwide for their vineyards. Some of the best wine in the entire world is grown there. But if you can't tell based on how I speak, the stories I've told you, how I look, my name, I'm Muslim. And in our religion, alcohol is forbidden. So what was I doing in wine country? I was at a wedding. Because Napa got so famous for their vineyards, it became a very hot spot for fine dining, luxury events, and weddings. Now, this was part 2 of a 4-part series in our culture for weddings. Part 1 is called the nikah, and that's when the official religious vows are read, and that's what's officially a marriage. Everything after is just for fun. So this event was hosted by the girl side, and what they did was rent out this massive 9-bedroom house in the middle of a vineyard, and then next to it they set up this gigantic, like 200-300 person tent that was all decked out with heating, seating, tables, dessert stuff. They had a center platform that was raised for like the bride and the groom to sit, space in the middle for dances. And the idea behind it was that if someone from the wedding needed to use the bathroom, they would walk like 3-4 feet over into the house, use the bathroom, come back to the wedding. And also the caterers were bringing the food. They could leave that stuff in the house, then bring it out for the wedding when it was time for the food to be served. And the family that was flying in for the wedding, as well as the family who lived in the area, they could all just stay together in that house, have a good time, versus having to pay like separate hotel bills and then having to commute back and forth from the hotel to the tent and come back. It was very well thought out. So imagine now it's halfway through the wedding. I just sat through all these boring speeches. I've known her since we were 6 years old, and I'm so glad that he's now entered her shoot me. And we'd gotten to the good part now, the food. So I loaded up my plate full of like chicken tikka, chicken karai, nahari, all the good stuff, the naan, the toppers, the fillings, everything. And I was one of the first people to get my first plate of food because I'm just very hungry. I was eating it, chowed down to that thing pretty fast, tasted phenomenal. They had some amazing catering at that wedding. And I'm looking at the line, there's people still in line to get their first plate. And I'm like, how do I casually get my second plate of food without looking like the biggest fat in the family? So I figured, all right, I'm gonna go hang out over there with those guys and I'll casually walk over. But before I can get my second plate of food, I hear my mom calling me. Turns out she wants to go check out the house. So I'm like, all right, cool, get a napkin, brush my hands, I'll get my plate later. And we're now walking over from the tent to the side of the house where the entrance is. As we're walking over, the air's getting pretty chilly now. My mom's making fun of me because this girl who got married, I had a crush on when I was 7 years old. She's like, oh, you remember that time when she threw your shoes in the fountain? Something dumb like that. But as we're making these jokes and we turn around the side of the house, we see a horror story. It's my grandma on the floor, half sitting, half laying, just sprawled out in pain, clutching her leg while two grown men are towering over her. It was my uncle and some other guy. So me and my mom kind of just rush over a little bit. What happened? Is everything okay? It turns out my grandma, when she was walking down the steps out of the house, she missed a step, she rolled her ankle, and she fell. Not the end of the world. She's in, some pain, but nothing to be hospitalized about. The guy who was there, who we didn't know, he just went inside to get her some ice. And my uncle and mom are now arguing, oh, should we bring her inside the house? But then everyone else from the wedding's going to come inside to wonder what happened because, these desi aunties just love drama. So they're always watching these Walmart quality shows on their TV. So should we do that? Or should we somehow, just take her back home? Should she stay in the car? Or do we want to leave the wedding early? I mean, it's still halfway through. What if we take her back to the tent and she just sits down and kind of relaxes over there? But how do we get her there? Because she can't walk now. And then how do we bring the car over? And do we drive it over? But it's kind of weird driving. So they're arguing like this, just back and forth for the next 10 minutes. And I'm getting a bit agitated now because I want to get that second plate of food. So without thinking, I just pick up my grandma like a kid, like around the back of her knees and her back, and I just walk her to the tent. So imagine I'm walking her now, and although I did lift her about 1.5 years at that time, she was heavy. So I remember as I'm walking, my biceps start to burn a little bit. And then I start to feel myself sweating on my armpits and with my ass. And I start to notice my breathing's getting very heavy. And also the weight of her, it's shifting from my core to my lower back. And halfway through, I'm really feeling like stopping. This is like really starting to ache now. I don't think I'm strong enough to make it, but I'm not going to be like a loser. Just stop halfway through, catch my breath, pick her back up again. So I keep powering through. My biceps are burning now, but I'm trying to have like a very calm, stoic face. So it's easy, not a big deal. I eventually get to the tent. I put her down. I'm trying to relax my breathing while no one pays attention. I get a cup of water. I'm trying to shift my underwear around because there's so much sweat down there. Eventually the whole commotion relaxes. Everyone kind of just knows what happened. So imagine this whole night for the next 1.5 hours, I'm getting compliments. People are walking up to me saying, hey, I heard what happened. Great job. I feel like a little bit of a celebrity. And people are telling me again and again, I'm disciplined. I'm disciplined. I'm disciplined. And then the wedding ended. Me and my family, we drive back home. It's pretty late now because it was in Napa. So it was a long drive back home, but it was worth it to go to the wedding. The next day I wake up late. I didn't have a routine then. So I woke up at noon, kind of ate some garbage quality breakfast. And that day I skipped my workout. I made some cope excuse in my head of, well, it's not good to work out when I'm not fully rested because, I did sleep pretty late last night. But it was just an excuse. Imagine just the next day after people are complimenting me over and over again that I'm disciplined, I'm disciplined, I'm disciplined. I skip my workout. And that was the day I realized I was never disciplined to go to the gym. I, like most guys, are not disciplined. We were motivated. So to firstly clarify a few terms, motivation is anything that makes you want to do something. It can be a deadline coming up. I have a lesbian dance theory paper in college due at midnight. That's in 2 hours from now. I am motivated to get it done. Motivation can be watching, a TikTok where some guy's he's driving a fast car and he has this Rolex watch on the steering wheel, and now you're motivated to make a lot of money. Motivation can even be just feeling like I want to do something right now. It's generally speaking not something that you have control over or that you can rely on. But you can set up your life in certain ways to maximize it and use it to your benefit, which we'll cover later on. Now, secondly, willpower is the mental strength you have, the power of your mind to not do the bad habits. So willpower can be sitting on the toilet when you're scrolling on Instagram and not busting a nut when you see these Instagram thoughts that are about as natural as these Mr. Olympia bodybuilders. Willpower can be not eating the, high protein ice cream and the stopping at Popeyes on the way home and then coping by saying, oh, but it's high protein. like all these like fake fitness influencers do. Willpower can be deciding not to go to the store and buy a pack of cigarettes or alcohol or whatever your vice is. And lastly, discipline is sticking to a routine, a plan, or a habit. So discipline can be doing 20 minutes of cardio after your 4 resistance training workouts per week. Discipline can be waking up at 6 a.m., going for a morning walk, then doing a 90-minute deep work session. A lot of people tend to think that other people are disciplined or that they're disciplined simply because they do something consistently. But this isn't always the case. Take the gym example again. Most guys are not disciplined to go to the gym. They enjoy going to the gym. They're motivated to go to the gym the majority of the time. Sure, it's a little hard when you're really pushing the weight, but 85, 98% of the time, most people really want to go to the gym. They look forward to it. It's that 2 to 15% when you don't want to go that your discipline is actually tested. And most guys fail. That's when they skip workouts, say, oh, it's fine, it's only 1 workout per week or 2 workouts per month. It's not going to kill my gains. Or, every guy's thought to himself, okay, I'm going to do ab training or stretching after the end of my workouts. They do it a couple times, then they quit and they do it like sometimes on, sometimes off. That's when they need discipline because most guys don't enjoy doing these like dumb ab circuits that guys do. Plus, they're pretty useless as well. And they don't enjoy stretching. So discipline is tested and most guys fail at that. And the same thing does kind of go with willpower. Some people might have a very strong willpower to not eat fast food, but a very weak willpower to not, scroll for hours a day on social media and vice versa. So these things do vary from person to person. Maybe some guy really hates resistance training. He really loves long distance running. So he has to force himself to be disciplined to go to the gym, whereas you're always motivated and you'll always go to the gym, but you can't stand the idea of long distance running. But the amazing thing is that discipline is better to have than both motivation and willpower. Because motivation, although it can spur you to do big things all of a sudden and be really focused for a short period of time, it comes and goes and you can't always rely on it. Whereas when you're disciplined, you will do what needs to get done always. You're sticking to your routines, habits, and plans regardless of how you feel. So over time, the guy who's disciplined, he'll always get ahead because those few workouts, the guy who's motivated skips over the years, the guy who's disciplined, he doesn't skip them. So he will catch up and pass that guy. Then also, if you're very disciplined, your routine is doing X, then Y, then Z. You don't need willpower to not do the bad habits because you're so focused on the good habits in the routine that you are doing. For example, I struggled for years with NoFap. I struggled with it hard. Sure, over time, as I learned more hacks and tips, I kind of built up my willpower. I stopped watching, X Hamster and Submission and kink.com. Then eventually I stopped doing it, generally speaking, the majority of the time. But I always felt like this habit had control of me. I always had to be aware of, okay, don't do it, be mentally strong. Okay, I have an urge, don't do it. And I got to a maximum of 40 days. Once I became super disciplined in growing this business, this YouTube channel, my NoFap streak hit 40 days. Then 90 days. Now it's on some insanely long streak. I'm not even keeping track of it. And that's because when I'm so focused, okay, wake up, do my morning routine, do a deep work session. Okay, go to the gym. Okay, now eat food. Now do another deep work session. Then go to bed. Then repeat that. Now read a book. Because when you're so focused on doing X thing in your routine, you don't need to think about not doing the bad habits. The rest of the world becomes almost invisible to you. What's unfortunate though is that the majority of people around us don't have discipline and they don't have willpower in their lives. They only have motivation. That's why most people are broke, they're fat, and they're single. Because if you only have motivation, then you're not motivated all the time. No one is to always be on top of things. You will be stressed out when you're not motivated because you're far from where you want to be. If you Google what is stress, it'll say it's a state of mental tension and worry caused by your environment, the situation that you're in. But I very much disagree with this definition. There's people who live in Africa who are like missing limbs. They're playing soccer on a minefield. Their cousin got eaten by a liger. They don't have Popeyes. They don't have a gym membership. There's nothing to do out there. But they have smiling, happy faces a good majority of the time. And that's because stress, in my definition, is wanting to be in a different place than where you are now. So imagine this water bottle right here is between my hands. If I squeeze it together, the force of my hand makes the water bottle want to be in a smaller amount of area in space. It wants it to be crushed even smaller and smaller and smaller. But because there's water in here and air, it can't get any smaller. So instead, the edges of it are stressed by the pressure of my hands. And if that stress grows, it'll eventually crack. The same way, if you're stressed in one or more areas of your life to need to watch this video on discipline, that's because you want to be somewhere else. You want to be wealthy. You want to have a better body. You want to have better relationships. But the incredible thing is when you are disciplined, let's say you want to be wealthier and you're putting money into the savings account. Let's say you want to have a better body and you're actually eating healthier and doing the workouts. You don't feel stressed because you're moving closer to where you want to be. And that is really the backbone behind the biggest reason of why you should actually want to be disciplined. For the longest time, if I'm being completely honest, my biggest reason for being disciplined was so I could have with more girls and hotter girls, and I could have all eyes on me when I walked into a room. I could feel important. And if you're being honest, you probably have the same mindset as well. Like, let's be real. You want to be disciplined, to sit down and work hard so you get good grades, so you get a good internship, so you get a good job, so you make a lot of money, so you use that money to have a nice life where you have a nice apartment and a car, so you show off higher status to other people and use that status to attract hot girls you can sleep with. You aren't really trying to be disciplined to learn to sit down and work hard to show off how good you are to your integral calculus teacher, or show off your report card with an A to your parents. Because as Sigmund Freud says, all human desire stems from sexual gratification and a feeling of importance. And there is nothing wrong with that, despite whatever anti-male agenda is playing on CNN or MSNBC. They're not like bending over for Pride Month or some peaceful BLM riot. These two things have created civilizations from the ground. Because of this, innovation has spurred. But there was a day when I had a realization that this mindset is the wrong one to have towards discipline. And it actually makes discipline so much harder. It's why it's so difficult for people to be disciplined. And it holds back your success in life, including in these two desires. And that big moment was when I saw a very just aggravating news headline. It was about how toxic masculinity is fueling school shooters. I remember seeing that headline and getting so pissed off because for the past 8 years, there's been this notion in society that men are inherently evil, that masculinity is inherently evil, that just for us being men, existing, we have to atone for the sin of being men. We have to put our pronouns in our bio and sit with our legs crossed and acknowledge that women are better than men at everything and men are blumbering idiots to somehow make up for our sins. And if you think about it, the mainstream you see is pretty anti-male. Like, they'll post a story that says like 15 people, including one woman, got shot or something. And what they're saying is basically this woman's life is important. They said, and one woman. Everyone else who was a male, their lives are unimportant. But anyway, I see this toxic masculinity in school shooters headline, and I immediately think, no, this isn't right. Because the men who are the most masculine, they have the most amount of self-control. I imagine masculine men to be these tough, rugged coal miners who every day they work 10-hour shifts in these dark mines, not knowing if they'll come out at the end of the day alive or not. And still, on the way home from these grueling shifts, they stop at the gym and they pump heavy weight. They can protect and provide for their family. And I always thought that those kinds of men, they must feel proud being men because they're so masculine. And then a realization just clicks in me. They feel proud to be men because they're masculine. And masculinity is having self-control. So if discipline is having the self-control to stick to your routines, your habits, and your plans, then if you're disciplined, you feel proud to be you. And then it hits me how in the past 2 years, since I've become disciplined, I feel so much happier and so much more proud to just be me. And it wasn't like that for most of my life. I hated being me. I hated knowing that I had no self-control and no self-respect for myself. And what's funny is, these law of attraction YouTubers tell you that, self-esteem, it's just say affirmations in front of a mirror and just repeat, I'm confident, I'm rich. No, you're broke. Self-esteem is the promises that you make to yourself. The same way if there was somebody else that said, I'm going to meet you at 3 p.m. He shows up 25 minutes late, help you with that assignment. He doesn't help you with the assignment. He doesn't live up to his word. You would dislike that person because he doesn't do what he said he would do. So when you tell yourself, I'm going to do X thing, today, I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to wake up at this time, and you don't live up to it, you hate being you because you can't live up to your own word. Back when I was in high school, I told my uncle every single day for 30 days in a row that when I come home that day, I'm going to order a new fridge replacement part for the water filter of the fridge. And I told myself I'm going to study for my honors pre-calc test. I want to do good in it. And I told myself I'm also going to clean the car windshield because the car windshield was super dirty. I couldn't even see out of it in the morning. It was all gross. And I think someone cleaned it with the wrong thing. I had to blast the defogger to see in the morning. And every day I came home from school, okay, 1 hour of video games, just as a break, I just came back, right? One more, I was down a teammate, doesn't count, 1 more hour of video games, okay, 1 more hour of video games, now let me eat, then I'm gonna take care of all that stuff, okay, 8, let me just relax for a little bit, 1 more hour of video games, 1 more hour of video games, okay, now it's like 10 p.m., I'll do it tomorrow. And I repeated that same process every single day for 30 days. Do you know how much shame and guilt I felt when I couldn't even live up to my own word? And then my uncle cleaned not just the windshield, the entire car, because before he even got out to drive it, he looked at how dirty it was and took it straight to the car wash that minute. And I failed that honors pre-calc test. I felt like a loser, and I was a loser. When you're not disciplined, it's painful to walk past a pretty girl because you know in your heart she wouldn't give you the time of day because you're not worthy of her, because you can't be disciplined to go to the gym consistently and to also take care of your diet and to also make sure you make lots of money. And even though these red pill YouTubers tell you, oh, just be confident, believe you can get her, you know in your heart you don't deserve her. And the same thing when you walk downtown past these expensive sky-rise buildings, you're staring at how high up they are, you feel shame because you know you could never afford one of those places because you can't sit down and work hard. When you see even a guy with a nice thick beard, you feel a level of shame because you know your beard isn't thick because you don't go to bed on time and you eat garbage food and you can't stay disciplined to doing the things you need to do to make sure those things don't happen. All of this made me realize that when you have the mindset that I want to be disciplined so I can feel important to other people and I can get a girl who has a personality blander than tofu, you don't see discipline for what it is. You see it as a chore, something I have to do. Yeah, I have to be disciplined to, get this girl at the end of the night, and I have to be disciplined to make more money. It's something you have to put up with. And we as humans hate being told that we have to do something. This is the same reason why in every single YouTube short I made and throughout this entire video, I never said once, do something. I said, try to. So it comes off as a suggestion. This is the same reason why in sales and advertising, they'll have this entire script saying, buy this product for this reason, this reason, this reason. At the very end, they'll say, the decision, it's up to you. To not feel like you're pressured into something, because we as humans hate being pressured into anything, being told that we have to do something. It's the same reason why when you're about to go do the dishes and your mom says do the dishes, you feel like not doing them anymore because you don't like being told that you have to do something. But when I made this simple mindset shift to it's not, oh no, I have to be disciplined so I'll have a decent life. It's I get to be disciplined because being disciplined, it's so much easier and life is so much more enjoyable compared to the alternatives, chaos, neglect, disorder. Is it hard to eat 4 eggs in the morning and do a 90-minute deep work session? Yeah, that's hard. That requires discipline. Yeah, 100%. But it's so much easier looking at the mirror every single day and knowing you have this fat, sick, unhealthy body and you have acne over your face that makes you get rejected by girls. It's so much easier than seeing that bank account balance where you are poor and you're stressed about your finances 24/7. So what's harder, eating the eggs and doing the deep work session or dealing with that? The same way, yes, 100%, it is very difficult to stay disciplined to your routine of not snacking late at night and making sure that you brush your teeth and you floss your teeth and you also make sure to do your skincare routine. That's all hard, right? But it's so much easier than those brutal root canals and cavity fillings that dentists do, than knowing that you have bad skin and you're like avoiding mirrors all the time. There's some pimple on your face people might say something about and you're insecure about. So try to not see discipline as a chore, something you have to do so you can make some money and get some on the side. See it as an act of self-love. I get to be disciplined so I get to live an enjoyable life and feel proud to be me and respect being myself. It feels incredible when you get in bed at the end of the night and you said that morning, I'm gonna get X thing done, and you got it done. See it as an act of self-love. Because the person who loves himself, he holds himself to higher standards. Same way, if the people you love, you want the best for them and them to really push themselves to be better. Whereas when you don't have discipline, you live a miserable existence. You vote for Bernie Sanders and AOC, hoping the government will save you one day because you know in your heart you can't save yourself. By the way, this isn't like a political channel. I'm not push my politics out to anybody. There could be other reasons why you vote for like Bernie and AOC. Maybe you're mentally disabled, you're part of the Chinese Communist Party. Lastly, when you are disciplined, you see progress in your life. 3 weeks ago, I didn't even have 1,000 subscribers on this YouTube channel. 6 months ago, my relationship with my family wasn't as good as it is now, but it's gotten so much better. My health also has gotten so much better because I've been doing 7 hours of kickboxing per week. And because of all this progress in my life, I feel happy now. And that happiness now fuels me to be even more disciplined. It makes me feel so much better and more proud to be me. So let's try to reframe our mindset. to be thankful that we can be disciplined and look forward to being disciplined every day. So to end out this section, your section step is to take 5 to 10 seconds to close your eyes, assuming you're not driving, and think about if I was disciplined in all areas of my life for an entire week, the beginning of Monday till the end of Sunday night, and I got in bed on Sunday night after being disciplined and doing everything I said I was gonna do, how would I view myself? I think you might like the answer. Section 3, less but better. Imagine this. It's January 1st, 2022. I'm standing in a place where I've never stood before, and I've achieved a dream that has taken me 7 years. A dream that always felt like it was just outside the grasp of my fingers. And now it's as real as the ground beneath me. And I couldn't hold back a smile on my face. I had escaped California and was now in the land of freedom. Texas. I'm wanting to leave California since the day I got here, since my sophomore year of high school. I didn't like anything about this place and these weird liberal girls with their tie-dyed armpit hair, to the taxes, to the homelessness, to the traffic, to the politics of the state, and always thought Texas would be nice. And that was 7 years ago. Now I graduated high school, I went to college, I graduated college, I got an internship, I got a full-time job, and I now moved to Texas. There were, of course, lots of ups and downs in that journey. Before this, I was in the lockdowns in California, and this state locked down harder than an active shooter drill. Everything was shut down. I lost 5 years worth of muscle mass that I spent so many hours building up. I'd stopped all my good habits, kickboxing, eating healthy, sleeping on time. I was doing all the bad habits I'm utterly embarrassed to say. I was watching adult content and I was eating unhealthy foods, and I didn't clean my hygiene or take care of myself. I felt like a dirty gremlin in my house, but I climbed out of hell and now had a job that was paying me $215,000 in total compensation. And I was also making money on the side from YouTube and from other like business stuff I was doing. I now had a massive 2-bedroom apartment with these huge windows that I always wanted, and my own like separate place, like an office. I now had amazing, incredible friends from the gym I went to in Texas and also from doing jiu-jitsu there, and I was in incredible shape because of jiu-jitsu. Looking good, I was feeling confident. I also started dating again, so I was now matching with a ton of these attractive girls on dating apps, and I was cold approaching, and I was seeing success in that area of life, which I didn't have for the past 2 years when I lost all my muscle mass and my self-esteem. And now with this first taste of success, I didn't want to stop. I wanted to take on much more and take my life to new heights. So at work, I was laser focused in on trying to get a promotion to make $350,000 per year. I was learning so much more in my free time, going to extra meetings, dialing in as much as I could do to do better at work. On YouTube, I signed up for coaching with another YouTuber you might know, Captain Sinbad, to take my channel to the next level. I also had a separate business I was doing on e-commerce. I was building my own like physical product in China with a manufacturer, getting it shipped here and putting it up on Amazon. That was a whole other side thing. And now, because I was in an area that actually had like beautiful, attractive women, not these like liberal girls with like ugly septum bull piercing, I spent a lot more time just cold approaching girls. I did these things called grocery runs, where after my gym workout, I go to 3 or 4 different grocery stores on the way home, and I just like cold approach 1 or 2 girls there, like buy one item. Then I was also using dating apps, and then also I wanted to have a much bigger social life. So I was going out with guys from my jiu-jitsu gym, from the gym I went to, people in my apartment complex, and a ton of other things as well were on my plate. I would fly back and see my family like every other month here in California. I would also visit my extended family that was in the Dallas area, just learning about longevity and optimal health and diet, which is not vegan, by the way. And with every new thing I added on, I would imagine myself becoming so much more successful in the future, one day making millions of dollars, having a level of success and happiness I couldn't even fathom. But very quickly, I didn't feel good. I started to feel stressed. And we know that stress is wanting to be in a different place than where you are now. When I was at jiu-jitsu practice for an extra practice on Saturday to improve my skills, I didn't want to be there. I wanted to be at home getting that manufacturing thing done with the guy in China to get this product finally shipped and delivered to the United States. And when I was at work, I'm stressed nonstop because I have to get that YouTube video done to hit my weekly goal of 1 video per week. And then when I was hanging out with my friends, getting food after a gym session, I'm stressed too, because I wanted to be at that extra meeting at work to learn new things to get me a promotion, and so on and so on. Every single thing I did in my day, I felt stressed out because I wanted to be doing something else. I had so many other things to be getting done. The stress kept growing and growing and growing. I felt I was being pulled in so many directions. I wasn't making progress in any direction. I didn't even know what to do. I had so many things to do. And one day, It was at night. I was feeling very lonely that night, and I was trying to cook up some healthy recipes I could eat so, I'd be healthier and everything. And I'm talking to some manufacturer in China, and it's driving me up a wall because these guys don't speak English, and I have to reiterate the same point again and again. And I try a bite of the food I make, and it tastes terrible. It's super salty. It's cold on the inside, hot on the outside, but it's still kind of overcooked. And I just broke down. I didn't cry because that's gay, but I didn't know what to do. I was being pulled in so many directions that I wasn't making progress in any direction. And I wasn't even prioritizing what was important to me in my life. That night, I turned down plans to see a girl that I really liked so I could work with this manufacturer in China when I don't even want to have like a huge e-commerce business. I just did it as a side hobby. I want to really be a YouTuber. So why am I not doing YouTube? Why am I cooking this healthy recipe? After that experience, I asked myself, what really matters to me? Do I want to be an e-commerce, manufacturer, seller guy on Amazon? Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be neat. Yeah, 100%. Do I want to be a software engineer that's climbing the corporate ladder and making lots of money? Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be cool. That'd be cool. I like that. Yeah. But what do I really want? I wanted to be a YouTuber. I wanted to have freedom to work for myself and build my own business. Then why am I bothering with these other two things? Let's screw them and focus hard on what actually matters. And I then did the same exact thing with other aspects of my life. Do I want to get burgers and fries with some guys from my gym? Yeah, that'd be cool. It's a nice burger spot. Yeah, I wouldn't mind. Oh, and also, do I want to go hiking near this cool trail with some guys from my jiu-jitsu gym? Yeah, that sounds like fun. Oh, and also, do I want a rotation of girls that I'm seeing, 4 or 5 girls? I'll see one every other week and kind of do 2 per weekend. And I don't mind. But what do I really want? Well, I want to spend time with my family who I care so much about. And I also want to just have one girl, the girl that I like the most out of all of them, and spend time with her more often than all these other girls. So why don't I do that? Let's cut everything else out and focus on what I actually want. And I kept going through these mental lists and removing stuff that was not essential for my life. And it was a bit scary at first, cutting out all these things. I thought it would be very hard to do, but it wasn't. Because if I cut out those things, I have more time to spend towards the things that I really care about and want more than anything else. And I saw progress faster than ever in the things I cared about. Right after I did this, I made a video on YouTube on my old channel called I Did Andrew Huberman's Daily Routine. And that video now has over 1 million views and it's made me $10,000. Now, sure, every now and then I did have a twinge of regret. That girl I was seeing, she did have a nice butt. Yeah, she did. Oh, and also, that burger spot was pretty nice. I should have gone with those guys. Then in life, I remember that we choose our regrets. If I had gone with that girl and with those guys, I would regret not spending time towards the things that I really care about, those essential things. And those regrets would be so much worse than me turning down that one girl and some burger and fries with some friends. And when I then looked at all highly successful people, athletes, Michael Phelps, Tiger Woods, and performers, entertainers like Madonna, and when I looked at billionaires, these people are not adding more things to their life. They're taking things away and focusing in on their essential few. Michael Phelps swam every single day after school for 12 years. He didn't miss a single practice. He had no other hobbies or activities. He missed parties, hanging out with friends to focus in on swimming, and it made him a world champion. AMD, a tech company that I used to work for, was on the verge of bankruptcy a couple years ago. They were getting clowned on their news. Their stock was $3, and it used to be $70 before. They were about to lose it all, but they took on a new CEO, Lisa Su. And when she entered, she did what I did to my life. She cut out the non-essential. At the time, there were many, many emerging markets. There was mobile gaming. There was high-speed servers. There was a ton of stuff, chips for cars. There was a ton of stuff going on. And she said, screw that. Let's focus in on what matters, making the best possible chip for a computer at the lowest possible price for the customer. She turned the company upside down. Their stock now is $180 because she focused in on the essential few, which was just the essential one. Another example is AP tests, which are tests you take in high school to get college credit. They're out of 5 points. And for the first 2 years I took them, I got, 3s mostly and a few 4s. But when I realized that, wait, I'm dividing up my time from practice problems, practice questions, watching lectures, reading the textbooks, watching videos, and it hits me that, wait, the biggest, most important thing to do well on these tests is to just do practice problems, because those are what show up closest to the actual test, and a lot of those questions get recycled onto the next test. So what am I screwing around with the textbook for? Just do way more practice problems. And when I cut everything out except practice problems, I got 5s on these tests for the first time ever. The reason why we're covering this section of essentialism before we cover the later section of how to build more discipline is because if you are not disciplined, your habits, plans, and routines don't revolve around the few things that matter, then you'll make very little progress in everything because you're so spread out, and you won't enjoy your life either because you're working on things that you aren't super passionate about. And because of that, you won't work as hard in them, you'll be less energized and enthusiastic, and it's going to be so much harder to catch momentum and take these to the next level. So let's find out what your essential few are. Cut out everything else. That way, as you go to build discipline in just these few things, you will take off like a rocket in them instead of being weighed down like an anchor with all this other stuff that doesn't really matter and isn't as important to you. So to find out what those things are, first realize that all humans have 3 core desires: health, wealth, and relationships. We all share our common humanity in this way, and pretty much every form of advertising you've ever watched sells to one of these core desires. Now, a lot of these are quite obvious. Drug companies sell to health. The guy with his real estate course, he's selling to wealth. But even ones that don't really fit into any category, like razors. Take Gillette razors. I know they're super woke now on some like the best a man can get, but they won't tell you what a man actually is because anyone can be a man. Think about the ads you've seen for razors, for Gillette. It's not, hey guys, our razors are stainless steel and they're durable and they're a good price. No. It's a guy who's shaving to get ready for a date. They're selling relationships. Cars as well do this. The minivan is not, oh, it drives so fast and, has such large horsepower and, can pick up this many people. Ad is 90% of it is just like the kids playing soccer with their friends, and then the minivan comes and picks them up, and the family's all going to dinner in the minivan, selling to relationships. The same way, if it's a luxury car, that it's, some hot girl in the passenger seat, some guy in the suit in the front seat on his way like downtown for a date or back to his place. It's always at night to imply romance. It's selling to relationships. Now, inside of each of these 3 core desires, health, wealth, relationships, we all have our own sub-desires that we are pursuing. Let's take an imaginary guy. His name's Ted. And he's in college right now because his parents say, be a pharmacist. He's, pharmacy isn't that bad. I'm doing good in school. But also, he tutors for about 6 to 7 hours per week, mostly over the weekends at his school's tutoring center. And he thinks, what? I could start a tutoring business. Like, the money's really good, and I could tutor some high school kids. And then also, he has an Instagram car page. He takes photos at car meets. He thinks, what? This could be a full-time job. Like, someone asked me about a sponsorship, and, it's cool. I got a little bit of clout from that. I quite like photography. And then also, he says, what? Real estate's really cool. I like the idea of real estate. It'd be so much fun to have my own little portfolio of houses I buy. I quite like walking around and being on the go and not being stuck at a job. If that guy took a second to think, what is essential to me? What matters? What do I want to spend the rest of my life doing? He'd probably think, I don't want to be a pharmacist. I don't like the idea of sitting in, one little place all day and just filling these little bottles. I don't like the idea of going through so much school. I'm not going to do that. And actually, the car page is a lot of fun. I do quite enjoy it, but it's just a hobby for me. I don't want to spend the rest of my life taking photos of other people's cars. It's not for me. And the tutoring thing, it's neat. I like the money coming in. It's quite nice. It pays quite a lot of money, but I'm not really strapped for cash. I don't want to be a tutor. If he had done this work, he would realize he actually wants to be a real estate agent. Like, he quite likes, I get to go from place to place. I really love talking to people, and I get to, have my car and drive around and build my little empire. I want to get into real estate. I'm going to get my license. I'm going to take this seriously for the next 2 years of my life. I'm going to sit down and grind, and I'm going to enjoy it because I'm doing something that I really, really care about. So if he cuts everything out that's an anchor to him from being successful in real estate, he will take off like a rocket. He'll wake up first in the morning, sit down on the toilet, and it'll hit him. Oh my God, remember that dentist I went to? Oh, she told me that her brother was a real estate agent. Maybe I can talk to him and I can shadow him and work with him because that dentist really likes me. And then when he opens up YouTube, he just sees, okay, real estate tips, real estate hacks, real estate loopholes. He's not seeing car stuff. He's not seeing college advice. He's not seeing anything that is irrelevant to the thing that he really cares about, real estate. So he's going to pick up tips and hacks and tricks to take him further in his real estate journey. And the same for relationships. Maybe that guy, Ted, he thinks to himself, family is very important to me and I really value them. But right now, at this point in my life, I need to focus in on real estate. This is really my passion in life. So I'm going to put my family on maintenance mode. For the next 3 months, just 3 months, I'm going to prioritize them less. less. I'll see them in the house, I'll eat dinner with them, I'll sit down with them, but I'm not gonna paint the garage with my dad. I'm gonna go to my sister's like kind of lame soccer games. And the same way he's thinking, I kind of have those friends from college that I'm kind of chill with. But you know what, now that I think about it, we're not even that close. They didn't even invite me out to that party. I thought we were close, and I can't really see myself being friends with them in like 5 years. Once college ends, I don't think we'll talk to each other. So why don't I just cut them out? But you know what? The guys from my religious center, those guys, they really care about me. And I like spending time with them a lot. So why don't I spend more time with them? And then for dating, maybe Ted's thinking, you know what? I built up a nice body. I'm quite charismatic. But you know what? I'm lonely all the time. Like I really struggle with this aspect of my life. And I feel bad when everyone else has girlfriends and I don't. So maybe for the next 3 months, you know what? No, for the next 3 months, I'm going to focus in on how to actually learn to date. I'm going to watch some Red Pill content. I'm going to have the balls to go cold approach some girls. I'm going to, do whatever needs to get done to level up this area in my life because it is a priority of mine. And he does the same thing for health. But you now see how this guy went from having 10 priorities in his life to just having 3. And he will shoot forward like a rocket in those 3 things. And he will be so much happier, which will feed again his progress in those things. It's a cycle that keeps feeding back on itself. I wish I had done this and not wasted 6 months of my life being pulled in so many directions when I was in Texas. So before we cover how to build discipline, let's find out as this section step, your essential few, what matters to you, because what you put your time into is more important than how much time you put into it. What I recommend you do is open up the Notes app on your phone or get a separate notebook and simply write down health, wealth, relationships, and put down every single subcategory that you have. And when you actually write this down, you'll be amazed by how many things there are in there. I was mind blown at how long my list was. Like, oh, you know what? I did kind of look into how to trade stocks and spend some time there. And you know what? Also, I do a stretching routine before bed. And also, I've got to mention that I do take ice baths once a month. And also, I do try to do a sauna a few times per week. And I go on walks with my mom every now and then. And there were some old friends I had from my old gym who do invite me out on occasion. And there are some family friends I do see about maybe twice a month. And you know what? I forgot to mention that I am learning about this new thing in longevity that's taking place about an hour a week of my time. Like the list goes on and on and on when you actually write it all down. Once I had this ginormous paper all filled out, it was on the note sheet, I felt a sigh of relief. And then underneath that I wrote, what do I not want to do for the rest of my life? Because as I learned, when you're running away from something while you chase something else, that's more powerful than just chasing something else. They did a study on mice where they measured how hard they were running based on a cord they had on their tail. When they wafted in a smell of cheese from the front, a smell of a cat from the back, and then a cat and the cheese. And when they had both things, they ran 5 times faster than one or the other. So for a few of my friends, they wrote down that they hate having an alarm clock in the morning, they hate commuting to work, and they hate being stuck living in one part of the world. So once you've written this whole list out, and you may hate quite a lot of things, which is fantastic. It's better to just hate something than feel neutral about everything. But you want to lastly write down now, what do you really want out of life? Now, most people, when they answer this right away, they say, a big house and, a fast car. Like, let's graduate 3rd grade. Okay, I mean this in terms of what do you want to be doing for the rest of your life? What do you value? And for me, this answer was number 1, freedom. I want time freedom to work as much or as little as I want, independence freedom to not have a boss to work on whatever I want to work on, and lastly, location freedom to work from wherever I want in the world. I value these things highly and more than anything else. This is what is essential to me. I also said I want the money to be able to travel anywhere in the world 3 to 4 times per year and stay there for longer lengths of time. I want to have a good jacked body, nothing like crazy muscular, and I want to have 10 out of 10, 0.0001 percentile, top tier, incredible health. I want to age very gracefully and feel very comfortable in my body. Then once you've written all this stuff out, I recommend you close your notes app or the paper and then open it up the very first thing the following morning. We as humans are very influenced by our environment around us. And I specifically am very gullible. If I spend time kickboxing and I watch some Andrew Tate shorts, I'm like, you know what? I should be a kickboxer. I should get into a fight. I want to take this thing seriously. I really want to do this. When I watch content from bodybuilders or I'm at the gym, I'm like, you know what? I want to get jacked. I want to be huge. I want to have a nice muscular body. Screw this whole kickboxing thing. Then when I watch content or I see people who are happily married and they're living in a nice house and everything's all good in the suburbs, I think, you know what? It'd be very peaceful, wouldn't it? I could get a head start on that. Why do I want to do all this degenerate stuff and go live in the city. I should just settle down and everything. And then when I go see these like travelers who are like traveling the world, I think, you know what? Screw a house. There's so much to see out there. What am I doing stuck in one spot? So when you reopen your notes app or journal up and do this again first thing the next morning, nothing else in the world has really influenced you yet. You have your own thoughts that are not polluted with anyone else's. But once you've done that, it's time to start being ruthless. You need to start looking over what you want and what you hate in life and cutting out anything that is non-essential to those goals. If you really hate the idea of having a commute to work, then why the hell are you trying to be a doctor or a pharmacist? Cut it out and focus on what actually matters. I know it is quite difficult to be cutting out so much from your life. I mean, we did already cover the idea that you can't have too much, you won't go too far in anything, and in life you choose your own regrets. Remember that you can always shift your priorities every quarter, every 6 months. So when I first moved back to California to start up this business and living with my family, I decided for 4 months, I'm not gonna do dating at all. I'm gonna focus hard on just growing this business. Once those 4 months pass, then I'm now back in the dating market, and that's on maintenance mode, not even on as a priority. So remember, you can shift things around, but generally ask yourself, what do I want to be spending the rest of my life doing? What would the 85-year-old me think about these choices that I'm making right now? When I was doing this activity, one realization I had for health was that as much as I do love the idea of taking kickboxing more seriously, and I do love longevity training, imagine being like 65 and in fantastic shape, I want to be jacked right now. I want to rebuild the muscle I lost during the lockdowns. And for that to happen, kickboxing and longevity training has to go on maintenance mode for the next 2 years. I'm going to focus in on building back the muscle I lost. So for right now, kickboxing is just 7 hours per week. I'm not going to start training for a fight. And then additionally, for longevity training, I'm going to do the bare minimum, which is just sauna work and just eating relatively healthy and a few other basic things. I'm not trying to add stability work or flexibility to my workouts. Things like jujitsu, swimming, hiking, things that I did also enjoy and do on occasion, those things are all cut out. By doing this, I feel like I have so much more control over my life because I know what my essential few are and I can count them on my fingers. So I'd recommend you as well do the same. Before we jump into how to build discipline, find out what your essential few are. This section step is easy to do, but it's also easy not to do. And you do know the power of little habits. Section 4, seize the day. So imagine this, I'm in the computer lab in my high school and it is loud. There's commotion happening all around me. The printer is whirring behind me. The guy in front of me has YouTube playing with no headphones on. People are chattering, there's laughter, there's talking, there's music playing from somebody's computer. People are coming in and out. The door is thudding back and forth. Outside, I hear the bell ringing, and every time the door opens, I hear it louder and louder. I see outside the door, there's hundreds of kids in the quads, all slowly dispensing to their classes. I see dozens of kids run out of the vape room or the bathroom from outside. People are coming into the classroom. There's talking. It's getting louder and louder and louder as everyone starts piling in. And then as the bell rings and class starts, very quickly the air changes. There's no longer so much chatter and laughter, and people are talking, and some are talking to each other, and some are on their phones, but there's a sense of tension in the air. And as the class starts to quiet down, I realize I've been furiously tapping my foot for the last few minutes because in 2 weeks, I'll be taking my first ever AP test. And so will many other kids in this class. And I'm nervous. I'm scared that I might fail this test, that I'm not good enough. That when it comes to me competing with all the other kids around the country, I'm a loser. Break's over. It's time to focus and not fail this test. I go to log into my computer, and in the black screen of my computer, before I'm able to hit any key, I see my reflection, and I'm frightful. I'm really scared. Because to me, as a brown kid, there was so much pressure placed on me to do well in these exams, to go to college and do well, that it was almost overwhelming. But then I log into the computer almost instinctively. I see right over my computer screen, there's a guy that I know on the track team, and he is not like me at all. This guy is as relaxed as those stoner kids in the bathroom. He doesn't have a single worry in the world. I'm amazed how he manages to look so relaxed, especially because he's a winner. The dude was 2 years older than me, a senior at the time. He was absolutely killing it. Every single aspect of life he had locked down and under control. He had taken the maximum number of AP classes every single year in high school. And he had a perfect GPA in high school, A's in every single class without fail. When he went to take the AP test for all those classes, he got a perfect score, a 5 out of 5 on every single one. And he even took a few AP tests for classes that he wasn't even in. To top that off, he got a perfect score on the ACT, an almost perfect score on the SAT. And if you don't know, by the way, the ACT and the SAT are standardized tests. People used to take them to get into colleges, but it was decided one year that because blacks and Native Americans don't do well, these tests are just racist, so they're gonna scrap them. But he wasn't just this nerd like so many kids are. He was the captain of the cross country team and a captain of the long distance track team. So he qualified for this mile run at the state level in track. And if you don't know, less than 1% of 1% of athletes qualify for the state level. There's maybe a handful of kids, 6 or 7 in our school every year that make it to state. And our school was on the better side, and he was one of them. But he wasn't like this super skeleton, stick and bone, scrawny kid that most long distance runners are. Also went to the gym outside of practice. So he had like a decent athletic, like, muscular physique, which made him look quite attractive. And to top that off, he still had a social life. He didn't have social media, which like might be why he was more successful, but I would see him like on people's Snapchat stories going to like not parties, but kickbacks, hanging out with friends, getting food every now and then. And the dude had a girlfriend. Everything in life he had under control, and people didn't get to what 5% of what his accomplishments are. And the craziest thing was everything he did, from the grades to being like exhausted at the very end of his mile run, the dude never looked stressed. So I see this guy now in the computer lab, and I'm thinking like, damn, I wish I could be like this guy. How does he do it? What's his secret? He must have some genetic gift, right? Couldn't be me. And I see that while he's in the middle of doing some homework for a different class, he probably already did the homework for this class, 2 people come up to him. It was like a guy and a girl, and I think they asked him a question, like, can you show us how to do this problem or this coding assignment? So he goes to log into his computer, and before he has a chance to kind of pull up the thing they were asking for, something flashes on his screen from his last session, and I don't know what it is. A couple seconds later, he just clicks out of it, goes to help them with something, and I'm thinking like, what did I just see? What did I just see? I couldn't figure it out. It was a white screen and a couple like thin gray lines on it and these very colorful blocks. Some were red, some were blue, some were green, some were yellow. And I'm thinking like, what was that? And then it hits me. It was a calendar. The dude was using Google Calendar. He had everything blocked off, like the track session, school, studying, time with friends. Everything was on that calendar. Nothing insanely like a million little blocks, but he had blocked off pretty much 7 or 8 chunks for every single day. At the time, I'd never seen anyone use a calendar before. The only one I used was like the built-in one into our grading portal just to see like when a test was coming up. But nobody I knew actually like put stuff in a calendar. Like, I'm going to do this during this time or that time. And I was a bit shocked. Like, is this how we did it? Is this a secret to his success? Maybe I should try it. Maybe I should build a calendar. Never did. Moved on with my life. Didn't think too much of it. The last I heard about that kid, he was graduating college like 5 or 6 years ago, and he was just chillingly deciding what company should he work for. He got offers from Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, Yahoo, deciding where does he want to live, what kind of interests him. I mean, all the salaries are all like 6 figures for all of them. I'll just pick whichever one he wants. And I believe he moved down to LA to work for one of those companies. Fun fact though, the guy was a computer science major like I was. And when I was a computer science major in college, I had to take a very, very notoriously difficult class called comparative programming languages. We were the only school that even offered it. And the class was absurdly hard for no reason at all. Like there was no benefit to it. The class was essentially, let's learn programming languages, but not the latest current ones that'll help you in your job. Ones from 80 years ago that most people don't know and most people haven't even heard of. And nobody will ever use them again. We gotta take these kids' money, somehow make them, well-rounded students. So I took this class, and the first assignment in this class, I'm in the library, just absolutely struggling to even understand how to do the assignment, much less having to learn a brand new programming language to solve the assignment in. So I'm like really in pain. How do I even do this? I'm really having a bad day with this. And I'm about to just close my computer. But I figured, you know what? Let me just check Canvas, our school's like grading portal. So open it up, looking for anything special. And I see, oh, there's an announcement from my professor. Click on it. What does he say? Hey, everyone, submit your partner's name and their ID number here. Partner? Partner for what? Look at his previous announcement. Oh, 6 hours ago, he said we're allowed to have a partner for this class. And if you don't have a partner to work with, submit your name below to find a partner in the comment section. And immediately lights go off my brain. If I get a smart partner and we both share the same grade, I pass the class and I do well. So immediately I start looking for the ugliest looking, darkest skin, longest name, most ethnically sounding name person in the comment section below. It's a known fact. The uglier you are, and the more ethnically long your name is, the smarter you are in engineering. So I'm looking. But because I read this post late, most people already had a partner. And there's only 2 or 3 people left that I could partner up with. And one of them was a girl. Now, normally I would have just dismissed a girl because the majority of girls do just drop out of engineering. They're just not cut out for it. They don't enjoy it. They tend to be psychology majors or do something else. But this girl was in a advanced class because I was ahead in college-wise. I graduated a year early. So for her to be in this class, she'd already gone through like 5 or 6 weeder classes. So if she made it this far, she was likely one of these insanely smart girls that was this like weird statistical outlier. So I ended up partnering up with her, and we spent a lot of time together over this quarter working on these notoriously difficult programming assignments. And during that time, I got to know this girl very well, and she was a very, very high achiever. She was the captain of the Brown dance team for our school, which had over 40 people in it. So she was dancing for the team, but also managing the fundraising, the events. She had a very abundant social life, partly because she was the captain of this team. She's going to parties and kickbacks and events nonstop with her team and other teams in the area and just her own friends. She went to the gym quite often on top of her doing the whole dance session thing, which was every single weekday for 2 hours. She was also a senior at the time, and she'd gotten multiple offers from Bay Area companies to work for them. PayPal, Uber, Airbnb, Lyft. She was deciding which one she wanted to accept. And over the past few years, she also led these like women in tech leadership events where like these huge conferences would take place and thousands of girls would fly in. And the person who was like organizing this would fly her out to help run all these things and make sure everything went by smoothly. So she was on top of her game. And every single time I was with her working on these assignments, before we left, she said, okay, when do you want to do the next like meetup? And she'd open up her calendar using Google Calendar, and she would put our time as like a blocked chunk into this already just super busy calendar she had going on. And now I'm thinking, okay, another highly successful person who's my age who uses a calendar. Now at the time, I was also about 6 months into my self-transformation journey. I was watching Cole Hastings and Ali Abdaal and Thomas Frank on YouTube and trying to incorporate their good habits into my routine. Things like meditation sessions and journaling and reading and gratefulness and all this jazz. But I was struggling immensely with doing these things consistently. I knew these habits were good for me. I'd seen some little bit of benefit to them in my life. And I figured if I did them over a long period of time, I'd see a ton of benefit. But I'd do them for a few days, then I'd forget. Then I decide, you know what, I'll do it later today, then I just skip it. Then I forget about it for a few weeks. Then I try to do them all at once, all over again. It wasn't working out at all, and it was leaving me frustrated. And the fact that these self-improvement productivity guys were also saying, make a calendar, I decided, you know what, I'm going to finally make a calendar. I've seen too many successful people use one, and I want to be in that same boat. So that night, I went to the Notes app on my phone, and I made this insane productivity calendar. I was going to do boom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'd stack this thing like leftist stack letters on the LGBTQ2S plus IA acronym. I was adding so much to it, and I thought, that's it. If I follow this calendar, I'm going to be on top of life. So I went to bed that night, excited to follow it the next day, knowing that I was going to transform my life when I woke up, because all I had to do was just follow what it said. And then literally every single day for the next 2 weeks, I completely failed to even come close to following this calendar. And you know the mistake I made. I was motivated. I tried to do too much too soon, and I failed at everything altogether. I let my ego get the best of me. Most people waste a lot of time during the day. We spend way too much time on the toilet. It takes us too long to brush our teeth. If you don't think about like the walking to class or the little time we waste cutting up fruit, or, you know, we have to go get the mail and things happen. So I decided to take a step back, scrap that calendar, and instead make a very simplistic calendar that I could follow. One that I was a little embarrassed to even make in the first place. It had full of empty white space. It was just the bare minimum with a few good habits sprinkled in there. But now that I had this very simple rudimentary calendar that just had a few good habits sprinkled in, I was able to stick with it and be consistent with it. These good habits that I struggled to incorporate in my day for years, once they were on my calendar, I started doing them every single day after day after day. And eventually they felt rhythmic. It was just part of my routine. Then I threw in some more stuff in there, a couple more good habits, and a few more. This, of course, was as the months went by. And then a few miscellaneous things. For example, I would always forget to do my laundry, so I'd always push it off next day, and then I'd end up with like some weird orange green outfit that didn't match at all. So I added a block in there for, hey, during this time every week, I'm going to do my laundry. Then I would add something else. For example, I had a very bad habit of only trim my pubes before a date. But sometimes the date was like on Friday and I had class that morning, and I wouldn't have like time to trim my pubes after the gym because I had to go to class. So I would have to take another shower in the middle of the day. So I added a block on Tuesdays just for manscaping. And then very slowly after that, I started adding deep work sessions. First 30 minutes of deep focused work, okay, then 45 minutes, okay, then 90 minutes. Now it's 2 deep work sessions. And over the years, as I built my calendar from the top and bottom, it got thicker and thicker and thicker, and I was able to stay with until one day I looked at my calendar and I realized this was the same calendar that I saw those successful people use. It had a ton of stuff in there. It looked busy, but I was actually able to stay consistent with it once I built up my discipline over the years. Remember, discipline is just sticking to the routines, habits, and plans that you have set. And since the habits in my calendar were designed to help me reach my goals, I started seeing so much more success in my life. Now, of course, there were times when I made the mistake of adding way too much too soon. I couldn't stick with it and I had to backtrack a little bit. But generally speaking, over time, I just slowly built it up every few weeks or every other month, adding one more thing to it, where one day I was just so proud when I saw how busy it looked and I was able to actually do all those things. It wasn't just fluff to make me seem busy. This one little thing of using a calendar, which I saw the track captain do all those years back, I wish I would have started then because it would have been so much more successful now. And to this day, I still use a calendar. But additionally, as the years went by from when I'm telling you these stories, I learned more and more about the power of routine, how it sets you up in a flow where one thing leads to the next, the next, to the next. And as you repeat these tasks over and over again, you're able to do them faster, more efficiently, and get more out of them. For example, one of the best golfers in the entire world is Jack Nicklaus. The dude won like 170 professional golf tournaments in his career. He was unstoppable. And he claimed one of his secrets to his success was his pre-shot ritual. So essentially, before he went to go hit the golf ball to the hole, just do a few fake swings on the grass next to it. Then he would rotate his back 4 or 5 times. Then he would make sure to look at the ball, then look at his target, then back to the ball, then back to the target. Then he would switch his golf club from left hand to right hand, then squeeze on the left hand, then squeeze on the right hand. Then he would go up to the golf ball, then again look at the golf ball and the target, golf ball, target, and then he'd swing. And somebody timed him over a professional match, and his pre-shot ritual never varied. For all those 18 holes, it never varied by more than 1 second. But one day, he wasn't doing too good. Jack Nicklaus had the worst ever tournament in his entire career. It was horrendous by far. I don't know what the score is because I don't like watch golf because I have things to do. Like especially of all the sports I'd watch, golf would probably not be up there in the most exciting ones ever. But essentially, it was his worst ever tournament, worst he ever performed. And somebody noticed when they watched the footage, he didn't have a pre-shot ritual. He was kind of doing it here, doing something else there. It wasn't consistent with the routine he had established for all those tournaments, for all those years before. He lost sight of his routine, and then he lost the game. So at this point in time, you know what the compound effect is and how little habits grow with time. You know what discipline is. It's simply sticking to the routines, habits, and plans that you've set for yourself. And you know what your essential few is, the things that you really want success in. It's time to put all those things together by creating a calendar that has the little habits to help you achieve success in your essential few. Now, right off the bat, I know a calendar sounds like very lame, like mundane, like you're just a business person that all they do is work. But what I learned a couple years ago is that your brain only remembers emotionally high memories. Think of all the times you went to 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, all those days you woke up, you went to school. You don't remember any of those. You do remember that time you almost drowned at the water park, the time you were on stage super frightened, that amazing fun time you had with your friends, the time you won that high school, you don't win spelling bees, you're not that smart, but you won some award. Those memories you remember, everything else gone. You don't remember what is not an emotionally high memory. Now, the good news is that your bad emotionally high memories generally fade as time goes on. I'm sure you remember that like heartbreak you got when that girl in high school rejected you because you over-texted her and all that stuff. Eventually, all that pain faded. And the same with other emotionally negative times in your life. The positive memories do stay for much longer. But the way that I see it is if I'm only going to remember emotionally charged memories, what I do on a day-to-day basis doesn't really matter, then why not be as productive as possible during these regular days? That way I become successful, and because I'm successful, I can now do more crazy fun experiences and have more enjoyment in my life when I'm taking time off. Not to mention, children do whatever they want. They're chaotic. As an adult now, you make a plan and you follow it. Additionally, what you'll find is being in a rhythmic routine of doing, X, then Y, then Z, then X, then Y, then Z. It is quite fun in a sense because you know what has to get done versus many people like our age who are very anxious. That comes from them having too many choices. They don't know what to do with their time. Now, as for what calendar you want to use, it doesn't really matter too much if it's Google's, Apple's, Microsoft's, Notion, the Notes app on your phone. You can screenshot it and save it as a wallpaper. Do what works best for you. I like Google Calendar the best simply because I can set notifications for things in my calendar. For a long time, I keep forgetting that, okay, Sunday at noon, I have to do laundry. So I set a notification from it. So it just like dings my phone and says, okay, time for laundry today. The same way I can set it monthly and bi-weekly for when I need to get my hair cut, to text my barber, and all this stuff like that. But pick whichever one you prefer best. Now, as you're creating this calendar, you want to think in your head, what little habits will get me to have success in my essential few? So if we take Ted from earlier, our real estate agent example guy, he's probably thinking, you know what? I would need to cold call clients. That's the most essential thing. I would need to post content on social media to kind of grow my brand and my following. I should probably read books on real estate. And lastly, I should probably call old clients to ask them for referrals. But it could also be smaller things like just flossing your teeth and doing a skincare routine so he looks more attractive and therefore he'll get more leads and people will like him better because the world just likes attractive people more. Now, what we don't want to do is go overboard with these habits. We know better than to motivate ourselves with I'm going to cold call 800 clients per day. Let's keep it reasonable. So he's probably thinking, okay, this cold calling clients, that would be the best thing to do around noon. People are on break. I'm going to put that on my calendar. 2 clients I'm going to cold call every single day at noon. Social media content, I'll get that done first thing in the morning. And these other things I'll read before bed and I'll do the flossing and skincare routine. Boom, boom, boom. Now, let's say one of Ted's other priorities is building muscle. Now, he already goes to the gym, fantastic, but what time does he go? Well, 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, or sometimes 8 or 9 or 10, depends on. Let's make a consistent time he goes to the gym. Let's say 6 p.m. Fantastic. What else? Well, also, he should be sleeping 8 or 9 hours per night to maximize muscle growth. That's when muscle repairs itself overnight. But right now, he gets around 6.5 hours of sleep per night. And on the weekends, he gets like 12. So instead of trying to set 8 hours of sleep, this big jump, let's just make it 7. That's a reasonable goal, a reasonable habit to stick with. 7 hours per weekday night. And over time, that can get better and improve to 7.5 and then 8. But let's say he's struggling to just hit 7. Scrap that, make it a smaller habit. Creatine in my water bottle every single morning. That's doable. Once that becomes consistent, then jump to the next thing and next thing and next thing. Build up to it as time goes on. And then lastly, let's say one of his priorities is family. Brown families don't always get along too well. So he decides that every single morning, the little habit is I'm going to hug my mom first thing in the morning while she's, making tea and complaining about how the dishes are not put properly in the cupboard or some thing like that. Now, as you're running through building your calendar with your essential few, here's a few of the best calendar building tips that I've learned that you may take a ton of value from. First one, which you already covered, is don't try to do too much too soon. Nothing kills momentum like a lack of consistency. And I made the mistake before to have a super packed calendar to feel important and productive. Couldn't follow it after like a day and never looked at it again for the next few weeks. Keep it simple with the basics. If it's your first time building a calendar, a few good habits sprinkled in there, and try to stay consistent with that. If you can do that consistently for 2 or 3 weeks, then add one more habit and build and build and build. Secondly, very importantly, get the hardest / highest leverage task done first thing in the morning. So what scientists have found is that as the day goes on, our energy levels naturally decline. Sure, in the morning, you're a bit groggy. It takes a while to get yourself to peak performance. But generally speaking, as the day goes on, energy go down. People say it's just tied to glucose, the actual energy in our body, but you generally know you get more and more tired. It's much harder to do intense focused work later on in the day. The mistake I made when I was in college, so I tried to get the easy points in first. I would think to myself, you know what? It's first thing in the morning. Let me warm myself up. I'll do my dumb gender studies homework first for some easy points, math homework first for some easy points, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and try to warm myself up to this big task of this really hard, intense, focused programming assignment. But guess what happened? Every single time, it was already 4 or 5 p.m. and I had no energy left to do it. I put it off till the next day, the next day, the next day, or I would do it and I would be super tired and half-ass it, and it was very poor quality work. And the other thing is when you keep pushing off the hard assignment later in the day, it's always on your mind. It's extra dread that you don't need. I'm spending the whole day thinking about that programming assignment. Gotta get that programming assignment done. Oh, hey, how's it going, bro? How's it going? Yeah, something on my mind, nothing, whatever. I'm not able to be present. It's always in the back of my head. But what I later learned is once you get the hard assignment done first, you knock it off first thing. The rest of the day is easy. I mean, you did the hardest thing already. Just everything else just a breeze. And you're so fired up. If I've done the hardest thing thing already before noon, like everything else will breeze right through it. It's going to be a good day. Not to mention just easier to do much harder tasks first thing in the morning or earlier in the day because you have more energy, and also because there's less distractions earlier on in the day. There's less traffic on the roads, your roommates and your family isn't awake yet to bother you, less to worry about earlier on in the day. Whereas as the day goes on, people are texting you now, there's things coming up, you have a meeting to go to. So what I found is knocking it off earlier makes everything so much better. So try to arrange your calendar in that sort of way. And by the way, earlier on I mentioned highest leverage. Highest leverage just means it's tasks that'll give you the most amount of output for the least amount of input. In the average college class, let's say 65-70% of your grade is just tests, midterm, finals, some other tests, and maybe 20% is homework, 10% something else. So if I have to choose between two tasks, getting a homework assignment done or studying for a test, the test is worth so much more. So let's put more of our attention to it first thing in the morning when we have the most energy. The third tip I'd recommend when building your calendar is to habit stack. This is when you do one good habit right after the next. Because with every good habit you do, sure, you know, it's a little bit hard to do the habit, but you have now more motivation for the next one because you just knocked out something kind of difficult already. So for example, let's say in a given day, I have to call my mom, which I don't really want to do. She'll nag me about, oh, why aren't you married yet? And, you know, provided for the family more, and you should have been getting better grades in school. I don't really want to do it. The gym, yeah, you know, I don't always want to go every single day. Other things like eating healthy food, I don't really want to do that either. And I don't want to do my meditation session, right? They're all good habits, but I don't really want to do them. Once I finish my gym workout, I'm now pumped up, I'm energized, I'm feeling good. I killed that workout. Now I'll call my mom right there. And because even if she nags at me, when I put the phone down, it's like I've gotten 2 things done already in the day. I'm kind of hyped up. What's the third thing? Meditate. Boom, meditation. And now 3 things done. And that way you're fired up with each individual thing. Whereas if I spread all these things out, gym at 6 a.m. and then call my mom at 8 a.m. and then eat healthy at 10 a.m. then meditate at noon, I wouldn't have that free motivation from doing one good habit after the next to fuel me for the next one. And that motivation over time would help me make those habits as just disciplinary and not need motivation. So incorporate this tip, and especially with tip number 4, which is build up your calendar from the bottom and top of your day. If you have good habits you're going to do, don't put them in the middle. Move them more to one end or the other, because the middle of your day tends to be more variable. Maybe some days you have meetings, maybe some days you don't. Some other days you might have class, some other days you might not. Plus things do come up, doctor's appointment and traffic, gotta fix the tires on the car and miscellaneous things. Whereas in the beginning and the end of the day, you tend to be alone and you're less under the control of other influences. So it's a lot easier to be consistent with your habits and not have to shuffle them around because life does get hectic sometimes. Now, my 5th and last tip for building a calendar is to simply shift it upwards or downwards to a more extreme end. See, for most of human history, we lived in tribes of less than 100 people. And overnight, there was always a threat that, an enemy villager could attack us and raid our base and TP their friends. And, zombies would attack overnight or wild animals. Therefore, evolution came in and designed us so we could always protect the tribe 24/7. We evolved in a way where about 60% of humans are morning birds. We tend to wake up much earlier in the day. And about 30% are night owls. We tend to stay awake much later through the night, with about 10% being some weird exceptions. Some of these people that they take 12, 30-minute naps per day or something wild like that. And what I found is that people generally perform much better throughout the day when they lean more into their type. So me, I'm a morning bird. My ideal wake-up time is between 5:30 to 7:30 a.m. And right now it's just 6 a.m. And when I wake up early, there's so few distractions. My family's not up making noise in the kitchen. My mom's not, banging on pans and nagging me to clean the dishes and mop the floor. When I'm outside doing my walk to my park to get some sunlight in my meditation session, there's no cars, generally speaking, driving up and down. There's no kids running around. It's very quiet. So I'm able to sit down and really focus for that short 3-4 hour period before everyone else is awake now when there's more commotion and noise happening throughout life. If I could wake up earlier, I would, but I just have practice for kickboxing later in the evening, so it's not an option for me. I would prefer to wake up at 5:30 or even 5:15 as soon as I could wake up where I could get sunlight in my eyes and then start working right away. But there are some people I've seen who are night owls where they just prefer to stay awake later in the night, and later in the night there isn't as many distractions either. No one's really texting you, there's no one on the streets, everyone's at home, and they're able to also also focus in and sit down then. If you are a night owl, society does have a stereotype that you're lazy because you don't wake up early, but you're just more designed that way, and you probably know what you are already. Also, one other reason why I like going to bed early, waking up early, is because when it gets later at night like this, when it's dark out, I always feel very lonely. Even if I have friends that I'm cool with and a girlfriend and I have, a bunch of girls that I could be seeing, very lonely for me, and I just would rather be in bed excited to be hit the next day hard. And I also don't recommend going so extreme where you're not able to wake up consistently at that time. I know there was a while when these crazy 3 a.m. morning routine videos are very popular, but when you're trying to do that and you're not able to actually wake up at 3 a.m. and you hit the snooze button, you've screwed up your entire day. I call that snooze button a dream killer. If you ever hit snooze on your alarm, you've screwed up your entire day before it even starts. As we mentioned earlier, one good habit leads to the next, the next, the next. When you snooze your alarm, you basically screwed up. You failed the first possible task of the day. Now you're in a failure mindset for the rest of the day. I don't think I've ever in my life had a good day when I snoozed my alarm. And I've set up my entire environment right now where it is not possible to hit snooze. This is because I have a heater in my room that's auto set to make the room very, very hot and uncomfortable. And then I also have a bed, a pad cover that I sleep on, which also makes the bed very hot and uncomfortable to force me to get out of bed. And then also my alarm is on the other side of my room, so to physically get out of bed and walk over to it to turn it off. Because if you hit the snooze button, I can't stress this enough, you're in a failure mindset for the rest of the day. So do not ever hit snooze. But those are my 5 biggest tips for building a calendar. And remember, like with Jack Nicholls, the secret to your success is found in your daily routine. So see this as a routine you can follow for the rest of your life. So as we close out this section, you already know that your section step is going to be to incorporate these principles into creating your own calendar, throwing those little good habits to help you get to success in your essential few. And what you'll find is your life will transform because you were able to seize the day. Section 5. Kill the infected. So imagine this. I'm sitting in a very dark, cold room with no windows in this room. The ceiling is covered in cobwebs. The floor is pure concrete. The air just smells like dust and rotten wood. And I'm sitting on a very uncomfortable chair in the middle of this room, the kind of folding lawn chair. And because of how cold the floor was, I'm sitting with my legs half up on the chair. And the room was very dimly lit. There was a few of these light bulbs that work on the ceiling. It was kind of bulbs to pull a string to turn them on. And the only other source of light was the TV in front of me. I could care less about the room and how uncomfortable I was because I was watching one of my favorite games of all time load up, Modern Warfare 3. I have dropped hundreds of thousands of hours on that game. I loved every single thing about it. The speed, the graphics, and a huge reason why I played that game for so long after most people stopped was because of the game modes. Now we all like free-for-all and search and destroy and team deathmatch, but about a year after the game came out, the developers released a few new game modes like Juggernaut and my personal favorite, Infected. Now Infected is kind of similar to zombies, but instead of the zombies being bots and AI things that kind of were computer controlled, the living players became the zombies. They became the infected. So the way the game worked was when the match started, you were in a map with 29 other players. And after 30 seconds, one of the players would just switch teams. He would go from a living player who had guns and grenades and flashbangs and was on the living team to a player on the infected team. And this guy didn't have any guns, no flashbangs, no grenades. All he had was a knife to get people up close, a throwing knife you could throw far away, and you could move at 2x speed. And the way the game mode worked was every time the infected person killed a living person, that living person then joined the infected team. So the infected team had unlimited number of lives, or basically like zombies. They would just respawn right after they died. But if a living player died, they joined the infected team. So as you'd imagine, it is quite difficult for a single infected player to kill any number of living characters. Since the living characters have guns, they can shoot them from far away, from behind cover. But the infected player can get lucky with a throwing knife, or because he moves at 2x speed, he can kind of run around them when they're not looking and get them up close with a knife. And like with a zombie apocalypse, the infected players grow exponentially because for every player that gets infected, that's more infected players to kill more living players, and so on and so on. Now, as you'd imagine, every single match I played, all of the living players would huddle up together in a place with very few entrance points and shoot the infected from far away behind cover. So the throwing knives wouldn't get them, and they're far enough to be unlikely to get up close to knife. Because you don't have to be Walter White to know that running around the map by yourself with no one watching your back against these infected players, you can move at 2x speed. And once you kill them, they know where you are and will run back to get you. it ain't a good strategy. Now, I ain't a noob. I ain't trying to have, a fun game tonight, guys, and, GG till next time. I want to make kids cry. I want them furiously rage quitting. I want to get them to have flashbacks and trauma because of how bad I spanked them in these games. I want them throwing their PlayStation in the garbage out of rage and frustration. Even back then, I was trying to get kids to quit playing video games. So what I realized while playing all these games in Infected was the best way to ensure that the living team won was to make sure the least amount of people got infected as early on into the game. Games are about 5 minutes long, and if 5 people got infected before the 1 minute mark, the game was over. The infected would spread way too fast before the 5 minute timer was up, and the living team wouldn't win. So my mindset going into these games was do not let them spread early. Well, everyone else was kind of waiting for the game to pick up and, just doing trick shots and jumping around and looking like idiots. My mindset was do not let them spread early. Do not let them spread early. If there was some random idiot just running around the map by himself, everyone's like, yeah, he's going to die, whatever. I would be in the watchtower watching his back so no infected would get him while he's not looking. Because if they spread early, it was over. And vice versa, when I was the one guy who randomly got switched to the infected team, someone got lucky and got me with a throwing knife, my mindset would be just get 1 kill as fast as possible. Just get one. Just get one. I was trying to get these cool, sneak up behind them, get 4 kills in a row, just get 1 kill. Because for every 1 person I infect early on, will grow exponentially. And I like to think that I won. Well, I do know I won a lot of games, and I like to think I got a lot of kids to quit playing video games. It's a win-win for everyone. But there is one more very valuable lesson in the story. You see, now that you have your calendar, which has the little habits in it to make you successful in your essential few, success comes down to just following this calendar consistently. But that is easier said than done. So what we want to do is get rid of anything that prevents you from following this calendar. It's a hindrance, an obstacle, a distraction in your life. And then also we want to get rid of anything that moves you away from success in your essential few. So for example, when I left Texas and moved back to California into my parents' house to work on this business, I realized after a few weeks that I'd picked up a very bad habit of eating out multiple meals per day. The stuff I used to make in my apartment, it's not, the ingredients aren't in my family's house, and when I make meals sometimes they eat it, sometimes they cook food, and sometimes they don't. And I'm not totally against this habit. It does save you time in the long run, and your time is very valuable. But I was eating garbage foods. I was stopping at Popeyes and Wingstop and things that were quite disgusting. And I would cope and think, oh, well, I am bulking right now, and I do need the calories, but it was just an excuse. And because I was aware of the compound effect, I knew I had to kill this habit early because bad habits grow like roots on a tree. And if I don't kill it now, when it's easier to kill, it'll be much harder later on. So to kill this habit, I tried something new that I'd never tried before, but I wish I had, and that was habit tracking. Now, habit tracking is when you know that you have a bad habit you want to kill, especially one that you do on a regular basis, like a daily basis. You simply write down every single time you do that bad habit for 3 weeks straight. Now, immediately when I said that, some guy who's watching this, his ego gets in the way. Oh, at least not talking to me. He's talking to some other younger kid. I just know not to do the bad habits. I just won't do them in the future. This was the same mentality that I had for so much of my self-transformation journey. Okay, I did a bad habit. I feel guilty now, but you know what? I just won't do it again. I'll just have stronger willpower for next time. And guess what? All my bad habits stayed bad habits. I never killed pretty much any of them. Because we as humans are not logical creatures. If we were logical, there wouldn't be broke people and fat people and single people running around. They would know I have to do these things to fix these problems, but that doesn't happen. If you're being honest with yourself, the reason why you don't want to habit track, I didn't want to habit track as well for so long, is because 1, there's a feeling of shame when you have to write down every single time you failed. And 2, you're just lazy. You don't want to get out the notes app on your phone for just 5 seconds and write down that failure. But I realized this was the exact same mindset that kills these bad habits. So I swallowed my ego and I created a new notes sheet in my phone, and I called it Diet Failures. I wrote down the starting date, which was that day, and 3 weeks from that date. So start, end. And every single time I vowed to myself, whenever I ate out garbage food, I would write it down inside this notes app. That first week, I only ate out 1 time. Second week, 2 times. Third week, 0 times. And after that 3rd week ended, this bad habit was immediately killed off. I was amazed. I was mind blown by how easy it was to destroy this habit just by habit tracking. How is something so simple so powerful? So I looked more into it, and it turns out the reason why this is so successful is because 1, when you know you have to write down this bad habit you're about to do, it forces you to take a second to think, wait, is this bad habit actually worth it? Secondly, it increases your self-awareness. When you start to see, oh, I eat out quite often, like 1, 2, 3, 4. You realize 1, just how many times you write down the failure, but number 2, how many times you think about having to write down that failure. And lastly, which I think is the most powerful one, is it forces you to know that if I do this thing, I'll feel a sense of shame to have to write down the failure, and I don't really want to get like the notes app out of my phone and open it up. So your laziness and shame actually work for you. And as Tim Ferriss famously said, what doesn't get tracked doesn't get changed. What doesn't get measured doesn't get managed. For example, there was a study done which asked the average American, how many times do you eat out per month? And everyone's like, oh, 3 to a maximum of 6 times, no more than that. We like to be a little bit healthier. But when they tracked these people, they were eating out over 13 times per month. There was this massive disparity. Most people don't think of how often they do these little bad habits. And of course, they grow with time. And that's the same reason why every single highly successful person knows all their stats like the back of their hand. Every single major league baseball player and basketball player and football player, they know exactly what their pitching stats and their percentage of free throws they make, all this stuff. They have it knocked down. Additionally, every single businessman, they know their cost to acquire a customer, what their annual revenue is, and what their future projections are, because what doesn't get measured doesn't get managed. I wish I had done this years before when I was struggling with no fap and quitting sugar and going to bed on time. And even now to this day, whenever I think about, I have a bad habit that I'm doing, I should quit it. But I don't really want to, habit track right now. I'll get it under control. I realize this is my ego speaking. This same mentality of not wanting to track the habit, if I start tracking the habit, it'll make me quit doing the bad habit. So in your own life as well, try to think about what are the bad habits that you don't really think too much about, or you are very aware of, that are holding you back immensely from success in your essential few. For example, the real estate guy we mentioned earlier, maybe his bad habit is watching TV an hour before bed, just mindlessly scrolling through it, getting this cheap pleasure. No one watches TV anymore, maybe like some streaming platform. And he knows that he really wants to be a successful real estate guru. He really wants to be driving around in a Tesla and having this whole empire of real estate properties. So he should probably spend that time in better places, maybe reading books on real estate, or, growing the social media platform. Maybe you have the same bad habit as him. Maybe you have different ones. You struggle with not hitting the snooze button. You waste a lot of time in the bathroom. You spend way too much time just doing nothing, sitting down in your computer chair, watching self-improvement videos and coping by saying, but I'm self-improving. Really, you have other things you do need to be doing. Whatever the case might be, do try to kill this habit early, because bad habits are so much harder to kill as time goes on. And I know change is difficult. If change was easy, anyone could do it, and it wouldn't be easy to be, successful and to be exceptional from everyone else. But what I found that kind of helps me is when I remember that this is hard and I don't want to do this, and I really want to be doing something else. If I have this mindset, so does everyone else. If it's hard for me, it's hard for everyone else as well. This is where most people stop, because it's hard, and that's why they don't succeed. And I don't want to be like most people. So to end off this section, your section step is to take a few seconds and think about what is the worst bad habit you have that is holding you back the most from your essential few. And chances are you know immediately what it is right after I said that. Go into the notes app in your phone, create a new note, call it, X failures, no fap failures, video game failures, not going to bed on time failures. Write the starting date, the ending date, and then simply every single day, maybe try to pin the note too. If you can do that on iPhone, you can just swipe to the right side and it saves the note to the very top of your sheet. So it doesn't get buried under the rest of them. Maybe save the notes thing to your home screen as well. And simply every time you do this bad habit, you will now be forced to think about it, and you will find just like that, it cuts by 90%. And when you do fail at it, which, we all do fail when trying to improve at our life, failure is part of success, but simply write, that's not encouragement, by the way. It doesn't mean, but failure is part of success, so I'll just fail today. No. You still don't want to do this bad habit. But if you do fail, which you don't want to do, simply write down the date. So it's, November 20th, 2023. Write down where you did it. Maybe it was, Wingstop, you ate out, or just say, on toilet when I was doing no fap or whatever. And then you will find this habit kills off very quickly. I know you don't really want to do this. No one wants to do this. There's shame involved in writing down your failures and etching them in stone. But you know that you're trading success in your essential few for these habits, and you know what you value so much more. So kill the first infected. Section 6, exceed expectations. So imagine this, I'm laid back, I'm relaxed, sitting in my honors pre-calc class, half talking to my friends near me, half kind of doing the homework assignment that's due for next class. Everyone in the class is chattering, we're loud, it's a lot of excitement in the air, the weekend's coming up soon, everyone's having a good time, and I still get 8 minutes left to leave the class, and I'm kind of excited and eager. Wait, I saw something, and suddenly my eagerness and excitement to leave the class and go into the weekend just ends, and I feel a sense of dread in my stomach. The kind of dread where something very, very bad is about to come true. And everyone else in the class feels at the same time as me. And this loud, chattering environment goes from a still, eerie silence. We all see the teacher reach down, get a big stack of tests, and he started to hand them out. He goes row by row, aisle by aisle. He doesn't stop at every kid because the tests are not in order, so you don't know if you're going to be next. And all eyes are on the teacher. All of us have suddenly become pro poker players. We're watching his micro expressions because before he hands a test back to a student, he looks at the test and then hands it to the student. And in those few milliseconds, you can see an expression on his face. Some is anger, some is, acknowledgement, well done. Some is neutral. And we're all watching because we want to know, how did everyone do? But once a kid gets his test, then he forgets about the entire world. He just stares at his test, looks at the score for a couple seconds, then looks over it page by page, hoping for some kind of miscalculation, something to get him a few extra points. This was one of the hardest tests of the entire semester and one of the biggest ones too. This was going to make or break a lot of students. And I knew. Anyway, the teacher's handing back the tests. And I feel something change. He's going to come to me. I have no way of knowing, but I can just sense it. You can just sense these things. He comes up to me, looks at my test score. And as he hands it back, I see an expression in his face. So faint, but I know it's there. Anger and disappointment. I look at my test score. 41%. I failed. I feel like crying. I know this is going to destroy my grade in the class. I'm probably going to fail this class now. And I'm a brown kid. My parents expect so much of me. And I'm going to fail a class in high school. Somebody asked me around me, what did I get? And I'm not going to say, I didn't do too good. And I just didn't say too much about it. And suddenly those 8 minutes that were left in the class passed by in a second. As I'm leaving the class, trying to hold back tears on my face, the teacher announces, hey guys, I put the test scores in Canvas in your grading portal. Go and check them out, see how you did in the class now and everything. And I immediately go whip out the phone in my pocket. I'm bumping into some people in the hallways. I have to see what is my grade in the class? What is my grade in the class? What is going to happen? I have expectations placed on me. I have to do well in school so I can, even as dumb as it sounds, I have to do well in school so I go to a good college, so I get a good job, so I can get an arranged marriage and I can provide for my family. And my whole life's flashing before my eyes. And this might sound a bit funny. It really wasn't. And I see my test score now in the Canvas and I see my new grade for the class. And if I was worried then, at an 80%, it shot up to a 200,000%. But not because I got a 41 on the test and because I'm failing the class. Because in the grading portal, I now have 100% on that test and a B in the class. The teaching assistant who manually puts in the grade from the test into the actual computer, he was a friend of mine. We ran track together, long distance. And he'd been bumping up my tests for the past few tests from 10% here, 20% here to look like, a mistyping error. But this, a 41% to a 100%, this is sauce. Teacher, if he sees this, he's gonna know that I'm not that smart of a kid. What if he pulls out the old test and he compares them and I could get in serious disciplinary action, but the teacher never saw it. He shredded the old test. He never saw that grade change. I passed the class and life worked out just fine for me. Now, I'm telling you the story not to encourage cheating, but to show you how much I hated this class. I hated the curriculum, I hated the teacher, I hated how difficult this class was. This honors pre-calc class was harder than AP Calc that I took the next year. I hated these kids who did well in this class. The Asian, the Singhs and the Wongs and the Lings and the Patels. And in hindsight, I hated the class even more because as I went to college and I took more and more advanced math classes, integral calc, multivariable calc, discrete math, statistics, and then I went on to become an adult in the real world and work as a software engineer. Never once in my entire life did I ever use that stuff. I've ever needed to, thank God I know how to, get the inverse of a parametric curve today. And, thank God I know how to use this rational equation. And I figure out what the slope of acceleration is so I can take the integral of that to find out what the speed is, then add a plus c to that. Never. But the truth is, the biggest reason why I hated that class, and really the only reason at all, I wasn't disciplined. I couldn't stick to my routine to sit down and study consistently. And like we covered in Proud to Be You, when you're not disciplined, you hate being you. You have no self-esteem because you can't live up to the promises that you make to yourself. But as much as I hated this class, there was one thing I learned in it that was worth it. If I had to go back and go through all that pain and torment of knowing that I was a loser because I couldn't be disciplined in that class just to learn this one lesson, it would be worth it. You see, a few months before school ended, it was some boring Wednesday. We had about 18 minutes left in class, just felt like it was taking forever, just eternity for class to end. And we're working on our homework assignment for the next class. We got a head start on it, which is pretty easy to do. The answers were in the textbook. You just show the work of how you got the answer, which was work back then. Now kids have Chat GPT for all this. But as this is happening, the teacher's walking around just returning the homework that we turned in that day. So he hands back mine. I say, thanks. Wait, what was that? I see the next piece of homework underneath mine, and it looks like a piece of garbage. It's not even legible handwriting. It looked like it was rushed super fast. Someone didn't even care about it at all. It had water stains on it, smears on it. Pen was about to fade out and had been like crumpled up and then tried to be like straightened out again. It looked like trash. I couldn't even tell whose name it was in the corner of the paper, and neither could the teacher. But he didn't even take a second to look at the name, try to make out whose name, whose paper is this. Didn't even ask anyone. He just walked over to a kid in the class. The dude had super messy and greasy, unkept hair, no haircut in 2 months. He was rolling out like half a beard like, kids do in high school. And he didn't even try to trim up or like clean up these pube hairs on his face. He was eating chips while he worked on the homework assignment. And the chips, they weren't even like the good chips, like the Doritos Ranch. They were the original Lay's. So he had like the chip paste on his fingers, kind of like rubbed them off on his clothes too. And he's wearing very baggy, oversized, wrinkled up clothing. His binder that he had for the class had like papers coming in and out of it. It was all crumpled up in there. His backpack had chip bags inside of it, and like those energy drinks that kids used to drink. And his backpack wasn't even like under his desk. He was just kind of thrown in the area. He looked like a mess. Now, to be fair, the dude was quite smart, but the teacher walked up to him, put the homework assignment on his desk, and said to him, "Is this you?" But he wasn't asking like, "Oh, is the homework assignment yours?" Like, he knew, you could see it in his eyes. The teacher knew that homework assignment belonged to that kid. He was asking, really, is this how you carry yourself? Is this how you present yourself to the world? Is this your image? He took one last look at the kid and he said, "Never put your name on something you're not proud of." Then he walked away and class resumed as normal. Most people didn't even see this interaction take place. When I left that class that day and later on, like that entire week, I kept thinking in my head about what I just saw. Is this you? Never put your name on something you're not proud of. And it wasn't until years later when I worked my first full-time job to make some money on the side to buy things with, I knew exactly what that teacher meant. When you buy something, there is a level of quality you associate with that product based on the brand. When you buy a Toyota, you know you're gonna get a very, very reliable car. 200,000 plus miles, easy. It doesn't break down and has fantastic resale value. When you buy an iPhone, you're gonna buy something that's quite expensive, to be honest, but it's very easy to use. Anyone from a kid to a grandpa to someone who speaks Chinese can work an iPhone, and it's seamless with the entire Apple ecosystem. When you buy AirPods, you're not fiddling around with the Bluetooth and resetting it. It works instantly. The same way, when you go to Target, you expect stocked shelves. There's no mess in the store. It's very well lit, plenty of space in the aisles. But when you go to, New India Bazaar, you do not expect that. You know it's gonna smell like very sour. There's kind of flies on everything. You're a bit embarrassed, like, is this how dirty your people are? And there's like grime on the shelves. Lower underneath the shelves haven't been cleaned in like 8 years. And the same way, when I went to college and I was surrounded by so many new people for so much of my life, I realized that your personal brand works the exact same as well. When we threw a kickback in my dorm and there was like now some water bottle on the floor with a dirty mouthpiece and a dents in it, and it was all kind of scuffed up with like half peeled stickers, and the water in there looked pretty gross. I knew exactly whose water bottle it was. It belonged to the same kid who was failing math class, who had dirty shoes, and who also, his sheet smelled like cum. And I was 100% right. When I went to a fraternity and I'm in their driveway and I see there's a car in the driveway that's parked completely right in this very kind of like messy driveway when all these other cars kind of like half parked here and there. Look at the car and it's spotless on the inside. There's a little trash bin on the back seat. The charging cables are all very neatly like tucked in together for like Samsung and iPhones, an air freshener in the car. I knew exactly whose car it was. It belonged to the fraternity president, who always made sure he had a very fresh haircut, who never went to the dining hall wearing like baggy sweatpants and a wife beater. He was the guy who took care of himself, his hygiene, his grooming, and I was right. And so on and so forth. Who do you think is more likely to have a very messy, unkept, dirty fridge? Michael B. Jordan or Jonah Hill? And if you saw your neighbor who has a very, very messy garage, you can't even fit a car in there, that's just overflowing with stuff, what do you think his computer's like? Is it some clean desktop with like very organized folders? Or does he have 1,000 things on his home screen? I mentioned earlier on that success in one area of life spills over to other areas. If you're the guy who's very disciplined to go to the gym, well, because of that, you now have all this blood flow in your brain, so you do better at schoolwork. And because of that, you're now more outgoing and happy because you're doing well in school, so you now go into more kickbacks with your friends. And because of that, you're more social and outgoing. And because of that, you now have the courage to go cold approach that girl you like, and so on and so forth. The same thing works with your personal brand, the things around you, how you carry and compose yourself, the environments you're in, the things that belong to you. If you exceed your expectations in some of these areas, it'll spill over to the other areas in your life, including the essential few that you care so much about. After I read Jordan Peterson's book, 12 Rules for Life, I decided I'm going to hold my room to higher standards. I'm not the guy that has candy bar I don't need candy bars then, but I'm not the guy who doesn't have protein bar wrappers on the floor. I'm not the guy who has dirty, messy bedsheets that haven't been washed in 6 months. I'm not the guy that has clothes just thrown all over the windowsill. I'm going to hold my room to higher standards. I want to exceed my expectations for my room. So I did. I took care of all that stuff. I had a nice, clean room. And a few days later, I'm doing my gym workout and I'm not feeling really good today. I'm thinking, should I just skip my last exercise? I mean, I already worked out forearms last week. I'll just go home and I'll shower and I'll eat some good food. Okay, wait, but hold up. I'm not the guy that skips the end of my workout. I'm the guy that finishes my workout on time and does a little bit of something after, some stretching or some sort of, routine for posture work. I have higher expectations. I'm going to exceed my expectations for my workouts because I want to hold myself to higher standards. So I finished up my workout, did the extra stuff as well. And then, a few days later, I'm, trimming up my, my neckline to look presentable, trimming up my beard, making sure I have a nice, clean wife beater on every single morning. And I'm walking out of the bathroom. Hold up. The trash bin, rubbish is flowing out of it. Sure, no one's going to really see it. If someone does come over, I can clean it up before then, but I'm not the guy who, if I'm going to have a clean beard, it's going to have a home that has a dirty rubbish bin that's overflowing. So, I packed the stuff in there, threw the trash away, put a new liner in, washed my hands, went on with my day. And then a few days later, I'm writing an email for something that I really, really care about, something in my essential few. I'm about to send this email, it's good enough. Then it hits me, is this the quality of work you can expect from me? This is a very important email to me, something in my essential few. So I spell proofed it one more time, changed up a few sentences, fixed something up really quick, took me a couple minutes to do. And this exceeded my expectations. This is high quality work. And I felt proud submitting that. And it led to me having some great opportunities in the future. Exceeding your expectations by holding higher standards for yourself in all areas of life leads to success in all areas of life. Oprah Winfrey had one of the most famous talk shows on the entire planet. People watched it from other countries. Everyone, if you're a different race than her, a different gender, a different generation, we all know who Oprah is. She had 20 million active listeners at any given time. When season 19 of her show was starting, she asked her audience, submit the names of somebody you know who really, really needs a car. And she got all those people in the audience and she invited 3 of those people to come up on the stage. And those 3 people, she said, guess what? I have a brand new car for you waiting outside. The audience went crazy. She just gave away 3 cars. This was going to be an insane season opener. But there was one more thing she added on there. Everyone in the audience has a box underneath their seat. And inside that box is a pair of keys to the 4th car. And someone's going to get it. Everyone's like, oh, this is going to be awesome. What an amazing season opener. She gave someone else 1 free car. So let's all open our boxes at the same time. Everyone did. And in every single box was a pair of keys. She gave everyone in the audience a brand new car. You get a car, and you get a car, and you get a car, and everyone gets a car. She exceeded everyone's expectations by a mile. She could have just given away, 4 free cars, but she blew people's minds away. She gave everyone in the audience a free car. And that's where this meme came from, by the way. Like, you get one, and you get one, and everyone gets one. Similarly, Richard Branson is one of the most famous billionaires on the planet. He owns a portfolio company that has 400 companies inside of it. Things like Virgin Voyages, which is a cruise line. Virgin Galactic, which is a spaceship company. You can pay to go to space through his company. And every time there's a new company unveiled, a new product unveiled, he blows everyone's mind. Sure, he could do the basic, have a press conference and, throw a party and, someone random who likes this tweet is going to get the chance to go come and do this thing with me. But he exceeds everyone's expectations. Just outlandish stuff that's crazier every time. And it gets so much publicity that his companies do so well and his product launches are so amazing and so on and so forth. The loop just feeds on itself. But these people, Oprah and Richard Branson, they're rich. Come on, can we really do that? Well, Maybe we can. Now, of course, it does not mean to put so much of your time into things that are not your essential few. If you want to be a real estate agent and you have to be in high school and high school's on maintenance mode, then don't put boatloads of time into high school assignments if they don't matter. They're not essential. But the assignments that you have to do, they're the paper you're submitting. It should have your name and date in the corner, shouldn't it? It should have decent handwriting. It shouldn't be crumpled up or have water stains on it. It should come from a binder that's decently organized. And in the morning when you're leaving for school or for work or whatever, say you have a couple stray beards on your neck, you should take a couple seconds to just make sure your neckline is well trimmed up so you look presentable. And you should also make sure that, if you notice a piece of trash in your bathroom that's just on the floor, just put it in the actual bin. And then when you're driving to grab some groceries, you notice that, my car actually isn't that clean. Sure, there's no trash in it, but there's a bunch of things in between the lines and the seats, and there is some pebbles and some leaves and stuff on the floor. And you know what? There's a bunch of dust up front on the dashboard. I should stop by the car wash while I grab some groceries. And you know what? 30 seconds out of my day, I should do a skincare routine to make sure my face is free of pimples and acne and all that other junk. By exceeding your expectations in these areas of your life, you start to hold higher standards for yourself in all areas of life. And then your discipline, when it becomes so hard to meet this level of discipline, your expectations are here and you're exceeding them. So suddenly this level of discipline becomes easy for you. And your new baseline minimum discipline level shoots up to here. So to end out this section, your section step is try to take a few seconds to think about what are some areas of my life I could hold myself to higher standards. So what I've generally found is that hygiene, grooming, and cleanliness are some fantastic places to start. Maybe your mom's always nagging you about the water spots on your mirror or on the sink in your bathroom. Maybe you could just get a little towel and keep it in that area. And then after you brush your teeth at night, just quickly wipe down those spots. Maybe your room isn't as clean as you'd like. You're a bit embarrassed by it. And if a girl's gonna come over, you'd have to clean it before she came or something. Maybe you could start holding your room to higher standards. Clean it over this weekend and then try to maintain that level of cleanliness. Because what you'll find is if you want to be proud to be you want to see your discipline increase in all areas of life, you should never put your name on something you're not proud of. Section 7, garbage in, garbage out. In the 1980s, there was a 2-word rhyme created that every single person in every single English-speaking country around the world knows because every single child had it drilled into their head since grade 2 from their teachers, from their parents, from their neighbors, from their friends, from their family. And they're taught to obey it like it is the law, like their life depends on it. And that rhyme is stranger danger. See, in the 1980s, these news networks were thinking, hold up a second, wait a second. There is now a constant demand for content. Back then, people watched, these scheduled broadcasts, the morning show, the late night show, the 5 o'clock show, the midnight show. But all these segments in between, no one's really on their TVs. Wait, are they? They're now thinking, hold up, now so many American families have a television in their home and they want something to watch. What if we give them something to watch and they watch us and now we make all this money from them? So CNN was the first company to do this. The 24-hour news coverage, continuous news coverage that never ended. And they saw their profits massively increase to a level off the charts. But this caused 2 problems for them. Firstly, every single news network is also doing this, and now so is every single other network that isn't even news related. They realize people are going to watch something, let them watch us, and now they're all competing for everyone's attention. So how do we come up with some way where someone scrolls onto CNN, they just, they're changing the channels, they see CNN, boom, now they're hooked onto us and they will not switch to someone else. Second problem is it's actually quite difficult to come up with, investive journalism and come up with these unique and creative stories that have real facts and logic and science behind them every single day for multiple segments during the day. This is very time and money extensive. Is this something we can do long term? We don't know. But then they realized, hold up a second, we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. If we create these sensational, emotionally charged stories to bring on people's anger and disgust and fear, these extreme emotions, and we keep repeating these stories again and again and again, even if we don't have all the information, maybe there's partial information, it's evolving, we don't have all the details, we'll simply speculate and keep repeating what we do know, problem solved. And they thought at the time, since everyone was a parent, families were still a thing back then. Now they're rarer than $4 gas in California. So the biggest stories they can use to instantly hook the most amount of people possible is child abductions. So these news networks would repeat these stories again and again and again, like you repeat a good song on Spotify and exaggerating them because they don't actually have all the logic and information to back up what happened. They would repeat them and exaggerate, repeat and exaggerate. So of course, the average like US citizen, if they're seeing these stories repeated again and again, it's going to change their perception of how often they think child abductions are actually happening. So parents started teaching their kids, don't talk to strangers, don't go near strangers, stay near me. And they started putting limitations on their kids' unrestricted outdoor play. Kids were no longer able to like walk to school alone or walk to the park alone. They had to be like within eyeshot of their parents. And they had more of a sheltered upbringing. And also, public awareness campaigns like stranger danger were created and taught in schools and all that stuff that we grew up with. Now, do child abductions happen? Yes, it's sad, it's tragic, but the reality is like they're quite rare. Most people don't want to abduct a kid. Like kids are annoying, like especially a girl. At least if you abduct a boy, you can like play football with them and like they're kind of cool to hang out with. But because there's so many people seeing these stories again and again on repeat on the news, they're telling their friends and their family, neighbors talking to each other about these child abductions, it became common to accept that if you take your eyes off your kid for a second, there's predators in the shrubs ready to nab them at a given moment's notice, to where now it's just not socially acceptable to have kids do anything by themselves. Like they can't take public transportation by themselves, and they can't, walk to school by themselves or to the park unless they're with a group of other young kids. And if you even just saw a kid just like walking, on a sidewalk near a strip mall to just grab some groceries and come back to his house, it'd be considered quite odd. Now, I tell you the backstory of stranger danger to show you the power of influences, how they're tremendous in shaping your beliefs and habits. You likely heard the phrase that you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Maybe you've heard the newer phrase that you are the sum of the top 5 content creators you consume the most content from, because people don't really talk to anyone else in the real world these days. But in reality, there are 3 major sources of influences in your life. The first one is input. What do you feed yourself? The books you read, the courses you watch, the podcasts you listen to, the content like the media you consume, the billboards you drive past, even the nutrition. What do you feed yourself physically? The second one is associations, the people you are in connection with, your friends, family, co-workers, acquaintances, your neighbors, the people in online communities that you're in, the people that you walk past on a daily basis, teachers, mentors. And lastly is environment. What places do you physically spend your time in? So you have your home, which is, your bedroom and your kitchen. You also have the workplace that you go to, your school. You have the gym, religious center, clubs, bars, cafes, extracurriculars. Most people are at least kind of aware that the first 2 do affect them. Environment tends to be very underrated, even though it's incredibly powerful. For example, when the US was in the Vietnam War, over a third of all US soldiers had tried, more than a third had tried mushrooms, more than a third had tried. You had about half of them doing. And people back home, they were getting reports of this stuff. They were freaking out. And these hundreds of thousands, if not millions of soldiers come back home, we're going to have a huge epidemic of drugs on our hands. There's going to be an overflowing of crime everywhere because you can't just flip a switch and get rid of a drug addiction. But that's exactly what happened. When those soldiers all came back after our phenomenal victory in the Vietnam War, the drug epidemic never came. Less than 10% of those soldiers ever did those drugs again. And those were hardcore drugs. Just ask Lindsay Lohan. And this baffled scientist changed what we knew about addiction, because when all those soldiers came back home, they didn't have those same high stress cues to make them want to do drugs. They weren't seeing other people doing drugs. They weren't in environments where drugs were likely to take place and drugs were around them. So they just never went back to doing that stuff. And the reverse of this also happens, which is a massive problem that drug rehab centers have, because when people have an addiction and they go to a rehab center, well, they're now living in a place where there's no environment for drugs to take place. Other people aren't doing drugs. There's no type of content to encourage them to do drugs, and they get healthy relatively quickly. But when they go back to their old environment with those old people, with watching the old type of content that got them into drugs, they fall back to their old habits. Yet, unfortunately, despite most people knowing that their influences have a big effect on them, they still choose to drink dirty water. And I was the same way until I had a realization that completely changed my life. It was 2021 and I was eating dinner with my family and a bunch of my extended family. They'd all come together for this big get together. I remember just trying to eat my food and my family was just pestering me that day. First it was, get married, Beth, get married. When are you getting married? And talking about who do you want to marry? And like they asked these questions, but I was again very irritable. But then after that, because I was graduating college pretty soon, they all felt the need to give me life advice at the same time. And it was on the most random topics. Like, make sure you don't eat too much protein, and it's not good for your kidneys, and don't work out first thing in the morning, and also make sure that you buy a house as fast as possible. And then somebody said to me, this ticked me off so much. They said to me, you have to get your master's degree next. I have to do something? What are you talking about? And I kept my cool, but I'm thinking in my head, hold up, I just spent 3 years in college, and now you want me to spend 3 more years at school to get some dumb degree that nobody cares about after I get my first job, when I could be making money. And then it just hits me, hold up, why am I taking advice from these people? Like, I love my family to death, but let's be honest, the majority of them are morbidly obese. They have physiques that put Lizzo to shame. So why am I listening to them about this don't eat too much protein? They should not be eating too many carbs or too much fat either. So I'm listening to them about diet and health. Why am I doing that? And then also, hold up, it's true that my family is much better off than most Americans, but no one's like crazy rich and to a level that I want and that also has freedom. So yeah, they all have, high paying tech jobs and they've, done well, invested in real estate. None of them is making like 6 figures a month. None of them has a life where they have independence freedom and time freedom and location freedom. They can work from anywhere, don't have their own boss, they run their own business. They're not at a level of wealth or freedom that I'd like to be at. And then lastly, a lot of them are divorced. They're giving me marriage advice, but literally half of my family either just doesn't like each other or they just hate their spouse or they're just divorced. They're just not looking too good on that side either. Wait a second. If I'm getting influenced by these people, who else is influencing me? And then I realized, wait, I'm watching the same YouTube videos, this same, degenerate, side men content, like this is thirst traps and stuff on YouTube. I'm listening to rap music about what actually are the lyrics I'm listening to. And then it hits me just how the past, my entire life, I've been surrounded by all these people, even teachers who make like 40, 50K a year, and they're not setting me up for the life that I want. I should be listening to, surrounded by, associating with the people who I want to become. It is straight egotistical for me to think that if I watch the same content that everyone else my age watches, and I'm surrounded by my family who I don't want to end up like, I'm just going to somehow be some outlier exception that does exceptionally well in life. If I was surrounded by billionaires, like I would be a billionaire because that's all I know. And you know what's crazy? Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart, every single one of his descendants is a billionaire. The poorest one has a net worth of at least 50 billion. Imagine their Thanksgiving dinner. Oh, you only made 2.1 billion last year? Hey, it's okay. Keep your chin up, stay strong, be grateful for what you have, and maybe next year things will get a little bit better. And I now understood that old saying of if you put a coward in a room with 9 heroic men, how many cowards do you have? Well, 0, because you want to match the level of everyone else around you. After that experience, I knew I needed to be very aware and deliberate about what and who I'm letting influence me. So I went through my life with a fine-tooth comb over the course of 2 years. And I went from, listening to trappy rap music at the gym when I was driving cars to just cutting that out completely. I went from watching this degenerate sexual innuendo, sexualized content on YouTube to listening to podcasts and then audiobooks and eventually audiobooks on self-development and business. And now my car is a mobile classroom. Like I learned more in this car than I have throughout all of school. And I look forward to getting in it because I'm learning things to benefit. I also look through every single YouTuber and Instagram influencer I was following and ask myself, will following this person get me to where I want to be in life? Will I at the very least have a bit of motivation and encouragement when I see their posts, or is it just degenerate stuff? And for most people, they had to go. With people in my life, a lot of my friends, old ones from college, ones from the gym, I had to cut out because I know those people aren't taking me to where I want to become. And I know this might be a scary, shocking thought for you, but think about how many girls have rejected you. How many girls have swiped right on you on a dating app, or they're giving you their number after you cold approach and they kind of flaked halfway through for a date, or they ghosted you. Those girls, even though they were attracted to you at first, they decided, you know what, I could do better than you. So why don't you reject the people that you know are bringing you down in life? Wouldn't that make sense? I know it might sting a little bit to cut off a friendship or just, limit it or put it on maintenance mode because they're not helping you grow. But the reality is friendships do naturally change with time. We change who we're associated with as we develop. It's only in the movies when you see the same friend group together for 30 plus years. And wouldn't it be much better if you went along your journey and you had your own personal growth and they did as well, versus both of you guys never being able to reach your max potential together? Now, these are hard questions and most people don't want to have that conversation with themselves. Is this Netflix subscription actually benefiting me? Is this friend group actually benefiting me? Is what's popular actually good? Because the most popular restaurant is McDonald's, the most popular drink is Coca-Cola. Is watching the news helping me grow as a person, or do I enjoy in a sick way seeing all these perverted, grotesque, terrible things happening in the world? Is watching black pill content gonna make my dating life better or worse? Is music about and drugs going to actually improve who I am as a person? How many of these YouTubers give me a solid entertainment to education ratio? How many of them are these stupid, drunk interviews with a girl where they ask super sexualized questions? As I went on to change all of my influences to make sure that they benefited me, it became so much easier to be disciplined. And I saw my success increase in all areas of life, and momentum made it take off. Because where your attention goes, your energy flows. Because for one thing, like we mentioned before, your influences shape your behaviors and your habits. If you want to be a real estate mogul and every time you open up your phone, you see real estate hack, real estate tip, real estate mentor, real estate course, real estate loophole. You're gonna stay focused on your goals to become a real estate agent. At the very least, you'll get free motivation. And that's because secondly, when you're surrounded by influencers who've already been to a level where you're at or where you're trying to get to, you one, don't have limiting beliefs in your head. If you're following 200 people on Instagram, all of whom are real estate moguls, and you want to be one, well, if 200 other people have done it, so can I. And then additionally, they can give you a helping hand and guidance when you're struggling. If I told my family, business is tough, I'm not doing too well this month, it's kind of hard, I gotta keep my head above the water. Last month was good, but this month is not looking too hot. What are they gonna tell me? Oh, it's fine, Beta, just quit your business, go back into a job and do this business thing part-time on the side, and then also get married and, get your master's degree. If I was talking to somebody who'd been to a level that I'm at in business, he'll say, look, man, you gotta do this and this, keep your head up, you gotta hit this thing harder, here's the business to take off. And even if I don't even know anyone personally that can help me, give me mentoring 101, at the very least, the content they put out will benefit me in growing my business. One example of this was Alex Hormozy, who has a really big business channel. He recommended a book in one of his YouTube shorts called Influence by Robert Cialdini. I read that book, and in that book, I learned about the power of social proof. We want to do what other people are doing. And I used that tip and added it to my testosterone safe skincare routine, where I say, hey, 1,000 other people have signed up for this testosterone safe skincare routine. Because now when other people see that, oh, 1,000 people signed up, well, it must be decent, at least I'll put my email in, I get more email leads. So it's a win for them, it's a win for me, all because I was watching this guy's content. If it was some, drunk interview and, what's your favorite position? Oh, really? Would that have benefited me? Would that have made me more money and got me more leads? No, it wouldn't have. Influences are everything. And by curating them, you set yourself up to guarantee success in your life. And discipline becomes, as we said, 1,000,000 times easier. To close out this section, your section step is to do two things. Firstly, take about 20 seconds, close your eyes and think, what are my biggest influences in all three categories? Input, associations, and environment. Don't just, try to make any assumptions right now. Is this good or bad, or this person or whatever, but simply just be aware of who and what is influencing you. Once you've done that, I recommend you open up your social media accounts, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, etc., and look through every single person that you're following. Ask yourself, is following this person gonna let me become the person that I want to be? You'll know the answer within a millisecond when you just see the person. And it is hard to cut some people off, but these are your social media accounts. This is what you're putting into your head. Now, of course, in your life, dirty water is still gonna get in. You'll have to live with your mom, or maybe you have to talk to her, and she's gonna tell you that, yeah, protein powder is bad for you, and, Beta, get married as soon as possible, whatever the case might be. You're gonna drive past these billboards for McDonald's and Subway and other garbage restaurants and products that you don't need. But try to not let yourself drink dirty water, because garbage in equals garbage out. Section 8, the woman in the red dress. Imagine this, it's 8:40 p.m. on a very peaceful Friday night in Texas. And I am driving recklessly, circle after circle, ramp after ramp after ramp, to get to the top floor of my apartment complex. I finally pull up to the top floor, keeping my eyes peeled for cars coming in, cars pulling out, cars around the corner. Park my car quickly now, grab my water bottle, grab my bag, opening the door to leave the car, and I feel it. The weight of my t-shirt was holding me back to the seat, it was glued to the seat, and I couldn't get out without really tugging, because my t-shirt was covered in sweat, I had gone swimming, but I had it. I just finished up 2 hours of jiu-jitsu practice. I was drenched in sweat, and I had to meet up with a girl for a date at 9 p.m., which was in 20 minutes, and I just don't like being late to things. I have higher standards for myself. Quickly, as I exit the car, I'm just quickly, speed walking to my apartment. I open the door, my cat's right in front of the door, ready to trip me over. Quickly pet her, quickly just peel off all of my sweaty clothes. After high intensity exercise, it's just sticking to you. Throw them all in my hamper, close the closet door because they smell quite bad. Now I'm hopping into the shower, turn the shower on cold, and the nice coolness of a cold shower in the Texas heat and humidity. And for a second, I forget about everything else in the world. Then I remember I gave somebody my word, I'm gonna be on time. Time to make it happen. So quickly dry myself, throw on a new set of clothes. I'm putting some cologne on, putting some hair paste in my hair. This was before I knew that both of these things were toxic. I'm about to leave, grab my keys, but I can't stand the feeling of hair paste. So I go back to the bathroom, even though I'm running late. I'm quickly just washing my hands, get the feeling of hair paste out of my hands. Drying my hands on my jeans. I walk over to my car. I get in my car, and the sweat's still on the seat. So I'm kind of just, I don't like that feeling of that. And now I'm driving back down all 5 of these ramps, one after the other, keeping my eyes just peeled for cars. I'm moving fast. My heart rate's a bit high. All right, gotta get there. The place I'm meeting her at was a taco spot, which was conveniently 5 minutes away. I planned it close to my apartment for Obvious reasons. I pull into the lot. Okay, yes, thank God. A parking spot right in front of the place. I'm not going to waste time walking over. Pull into the spot. Boom, time to go. Get out of the door. And very calmly, very casually walk into the place. This girl cannot be thinking that I am eager to see her. No. Nothing kills attraction faster. So I open the door, casually walk into the place, sway in my shoulders, take a couple steps forward, move to the side, and I'm not really seeing her in here. Okay. Before I can even go to check my phone, the door opens behind me, and I can just sense it's her. And I turn around, and this girl is drop dead gorgeous. One of the hottest girls I've ever been on a date with. 100% Italian, long, dark, slightly curly hair, almond eyes, just that voluptuous body with those perfectly proportioned upper and lower parts, those childbearing hips, and her thighs. I'm thinking like, God damn, like, do these thighs come with rice? And you know, you can kind of describe a girl in one word. Like, you know, that girl's cute, that girl's bad, that girl's pretty. This girl was just gorgeous. I was FaceTiming my cousin a few days later. I'm like, you know what? Now I get why all these countries were invading Italy. It ain't for no cheese. I was batting out of my league, and I just hit a home run. So I see her and I say, you know, hey, in like, you know, a slightly deeper voice, what my normal voice is. I give her a side hug, and we instantly just kick things off incredibly. This girl was so easy to be around. We're talking, we're smiling, exchanging stories, we're laughing. You know, with like some girls just kind of, you know, raise their interest level and kind of act a bit, you know, uninterested and like play these whole games. This girl was so easy to be around. I had to like catch myself not like being too feminine. Girl, oh my God, you gotta. Yeah, so. And then after we ate, I took her to the Trinity River, which is a river in the town I was in, Fort Worth. It's like a few minutes away by car. We walked around the river for a little bit, talking, laughing a little bit, stopping by a park. And then I took her to my place after that. And we hung out there for about an hour. We didn't have sex that night. She wasn't down for that. But that actually made me kind of more attracted to her and see her more as a relationship type E kind of girl. But after I dropped her off to her car and she drove off, I just knew me and this girl, we're gonna get along just fine. And now imagine over the next 3 months, we're hanging out, we're going on dates, having an amazing time. She's texting me every single day and sending me pictures and videos of like clothes she's buying and just like, you know, outfits and paintings and stuff. And when I had to go to the airport, she's picking me up, she's dropping me off, she's taking care of my cat while I'm gone. She had the keys to my place. And I can't express how amazing it was to be with this girl, this beautiful girl, especially because for the last 2 years before this, I had been in the trenches. The lockdowns were in California and I saw my life decline to a level of an incel loser. I had lost all of the muscle I spent 5 years worth building. I was watching adult content. I was hitting the snooze button. I was sleeping in and just wasting my life away on video games and just degenerate content on Netflix and just, you know, politicized content on Twitter. I felt like a dirty goblin in my house, in my room that smelled terrible. But through discipline, I had transformed my life, and I knew that I felt worthy of having beautiful, attractive women around me, which I didn't believe I could, even with this, you know, like red pill, just believe you're confident type of mindset they put out for the 2 years before this. But nothing does last forever. At the 3-4 month mark of the relationship, I could sense something was very wrong. She was irritable to be around, stopped texting me as much, and responded to my texts way later. We were snappy to each other. We no longer were intimate. It felt like a chore to be around her now. And chores are a woman's job anyway. I could sense she no longer loved me and I loved her. We just tolerated each other. And this grew and grew over the next 2-3 months to it, or maybe 2 months to it, just resentful, just hatred of each other. And I couldn't stand being around her anymore. She just drained my energy and sucked the life out of me before I could even walk into the door. And then one day, I never texted her again. She never texted me again. And we haven't spoken to each other since. She just faded from my mind like a dream that felt nice in the moment, but I can't even tell, is it even real or not? How is it that a girl that I loved so much and she loved me and we cared for each other to that degree, even when the relationship just started, to we now ended up just hating and resenting each other? How did this happen? Well, I analyzed it and I noticed something. When I first started hanging out with her, I wasn't focused on her. I was laser focused on my goals. I was doing jujitsu 3 times a week, going to the gym 4 times a week. I was going to bed early. I was eating clean. I was doing these deep work sessions. I was grinding hard on becoming, a higher level software engineer, on growing my YouTube business. I had so many things that were on my plate. When I wasn't spending time with her, I was hanging out with friends. I was going skydiving. I was doing all these unique activities. I was reading books. I would tell her, like, look, babe, I love spending time with you, but it's 8 a.m. I have a deep work session in 20 minutes. You got to go. And I also have a very hectic week this week. It's going to be packed with stuff. If I can see you, it'll be Sunday evening, but no promises on that. And then when I did see her, which was 1 time per week, sometimes 2, we did fun, exciting stuff together. Festivals, concerts, sporting events, this cool stuff downtown. It was these fun, unique restaurants, and I really looked forward to spending time with her. But she really wants to keep seeing me more, so I find I'll see you 2 times a week. No big deal, right? I'm already ahead on YouTube. I'm still on top of things. But then it's like, you know what? She wants to sleep in. All right, fine, we'll sleep in. I had a late night last night. I'm still ahead on work. Things are fine. But then it was 3 times a week. And then 4 times a week. Now my sleep schedule shot with her. Now my diet shot because she's making like mac and cheese in the kitchen. And because of that, I don't feel too good. So now I'm skipping jujitsu workouts. So I'd much rather be rolling around with her in bed than some like 250-pound guy who's like sweats getting in my mouth and face. And now because I'm spending time with her, I can't work on my essential few, the things I really care about. And I'm resenting her in my head, even though it's because of my lack of discipline. And on top of that, when I'm spending time with her, we're not having these fun, exciting events and going out and sharing about our week and the cool things that I've been learning. It's these just boring Netflix sessions back at my place. Nothing eventful, just, it's kind of a waste of time, but you know, whatever, I'm with her. And I threw away my discipline, my plans, my habits, my routines to spend more time with her because that's what she really wants and I want to give it to her, right? But in doing that, I lost sight of the things that made me proud to be me, the things that are bringing me joy and happiness in my life, and the very things that made me attractive to her in the first place. I lost her because of my lack of discipline. Now, this isn't some crazy news story. I'm not revealing the Bible here. You've seen it plenty of times yourself. One of your friends, girlfriend breaks up with him. Now he's heartbroken. So now he's in the gym. He's grinding hard because of that. Some new girl's attracted to him. She becomes his girlfriend. He stops grinding as hard, stops going to the gym. She loses attraction for him. She dumps him, and now he's heartbroken again, and he's right back on the treadmill, literally. And you've likely seen the same exact thing with athletes and actors, right? Some new guy enters the UFC, and suddenly he's on an 18-win streak. Who is this guy? Where did he come from? They look at his background. Well, he's been training at this garbage, terrible gym with broken lights for the past 13 years, training 7 hours per day. He only spends time with his wife, his training partners, and his trainer, just grinding, day after day after day for years. But now he's on an 18-win streak in the UFC. All of that discipline finally paid off. He has celebrity status. All eyes are on him. So what happens? He goes to parties, goes to nightclubs, goes to regular clubs, starts drinking a lot more, goes on speedboat parties, spending time on yachts, creates a business selling, an alcohol brand. Is he still training hard? Yeah, he's training ruthlessly hard, harder than almost anyone else. He is grinding, but not as hard as he used to. And then some new fighters come along who are also like him, laser focused and grinding for the past 13 years. All they did was eat, sleep, train, and now they're also on win streaks in the UFC. 13 win streak, 18 win streak, 27 win streak, and now they get it too. The celebrity status, the fame, the thousands of Instagram followers and the DMs and the opportunities to go to the nightclub and the parties and all this stuff. But guess what? These new fighters, or this new fighter, he doesn't do those things. He stays disciplined. He focuses on his craft, what's essential to him. He doesn't let himself get tempted by these other means. And now when these two fighters, the first guy we talked about and one of these newer ones, they get in the ring, who do you think's gonna win? Take celebrities as well. Hollywood is ruthless. Imagine you have some guy or gal in their early 20s and they could have gone to college and gone to those parties and had a decent life. They decided to screw all that, live at home with their parents, and all they do is revolve their life around acting. They work some miserable serving job they hate every single day, but they do is they can show up to these casting calls at 3, 4 a.m. in the cold, the heat, to try and get a chance to show off something, anything, to get their foot in the door. And they do that after rejection, after rejection. They get parking tickets. They get humiliated with these failures. They've wasted 10 hours today, an entire day, to get a role. And the guy comes up to him and says, oh, actually, we filled that role yesterday. But they put on the best face they can, and they do it the next day and the next day. And eventually they make it to a garbage, like 5% Rotten Tomatoes film that no one besides their mom ever watches. And they have a 5-second clip of themselves, like just their arm showing in it. But they network the best they can. They put a smile on their face. And even though that night they feel like giving up all those past 8 years of work to get some lousy 8-second clip in a film, but they don't give up. They keep pushing, and eventually they make it to the Hollywood blockbuster. And overnight, they have 2 million followers on Instagram. Everyone wants to be them. Everyone wants to be their friend. They're invited to parties. They have to get a new house because people keep visiting their house. They have to wear a hoodie when they go out in public because they're so famous now. Their life basically switched up on a dime. Toyota saying, hey, we'll pay you 20 million to do a 5-second ad with you just driving our car. And we see some of these celebrities keep reaching newer and newer heights. They win Oscars and Golden Globes, and every time we see them, their acting is even better and better. Then they start their own production companies, and we look forward to seeing the movies that they put out. But some of these actors, they lose sight of their discipline, the thing that got them to where they wanted to be in the first place. And they fall into a life of alcoholism, drugs, partying, women, and they fall into a hole so deep because of these bad habits, they never climb out of it. And people wonder then, oh, I wonder what happened to that actor. Not good things. We see the same thing with empires as well. The Roman Empire, the Ottoman Empire, no army, no nation could ever beat them. So how did they fall? From the inside. Nothing fails like success, because success creates the very opportunities that can destroy your success. When you have nothing, there's zero distractions from the work to make you successful. Your discipline is less tested. But as you start to see some success in your life, more and more opportunities present themselves to you, and it becomes harder and harder to stay disciplined. Someone asked Muhammad Ali, what's the central part of your training? Is it the diet? Is it the running? You know what he said? Dodging the nightclubs and the parties and the women and being in the bed by yourself at 9 o'clock at night. That was kind of a bad impersonation. But every pro boxer is training ruthlessly. They've all been training for the past 12 years, 7 hours plus a day. That's the easy part of the discipline to them. The hard part is knowing that they're successful now, but they still get in bed after eating just chicken breast and carrots, and that bed is cold and there's nobody with them when they know they could be at any venue in any city in the country with any number of girls surrounding them, but they still choose to pursue what's meaningful. So it was quite sad and upsetting and shocking to realize that the game never ends. You have to be disciplined your entire life, because if you choose to sell out and just cash out and you're no longer making progress, you're stuck on the level you're on, then after a few weeks or a few months, you'll be miserable because you're not seeing progress in your life. And when you see these people who do cash out, pro athletes who made it to the top and they turn to alcohol and drugs and just partying and they start losing fights, they regret the choices that they made. And when you see these businessmen who had these whole empires that ended up just retiring early, they regret that because now they have nothing to do with their time. I used to look down on these business titans like, Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. I used to think, if these guys are billionaires, why are they making new projects and building new companies? If I was a billionaire, I'd be on an island chilling with some, big booty cuties. But I now realize those guys are more successful and happier than all the other, ultra rich people, because they're still seeing progress in their life. They're continuing to grow versus the other version of those guys, right? Other, successful entrepreneurs who cashed out at 50, 100 million. And now, sure, they have the fast cars and the private planes and the hot girls in the car with them. Those guys are miserable. And if you could just flip the switch and switch places with those guys, yeah, it'd be fun for a while, finally, all these hot girls and, the living the rich life. But you would get used to it after a while. Your brain would adapt. And because you're not making progress in your life, you're stuck on the level you're at, you'd be miserable. The guys who continue to stay disciplined, who want to keep growing their little business empires and keep improving, becoming the best version of themselves in a specific area, it's not work to them. It's play. And the worst part is if you do decide to cash out, maybe not, actually cash out, but you stop at the level that you're at, you stop making progress, you lose momentum. And it is so hard to gain that back again. And that's why you should try to never, ever, ever look at the woman in the red dress. So if you've watched the movie The Matrix, if you haven't, no big deal, I haven't watched it either, you'll understand the analogy. The main character, Neo, is walking through the streets with his mentor, Morpheus. And in the streets, everything's all grayed out, gloomy, and dull. And then, whoa, he sees this 10 out of 10, just bombshell woman come in from the side. And he's so fascinated by her, like, whoa, she's so pretty and tempting. And what? Oh, his mentor said something. What? He wasn't paying attention. Mentor says, "Were you looking at me or the woman in the red dress?" Look again. He turns around. It's an agent holding a gun to his head. The woman in the red dress will always tempt you at every level of life you're in. Now, for example, when I was living in Fort Worth, Texas last year, I was making $250,000 as a software engineer. And I had, a couple of girls I was seeing in a rotation. I had a decent life set up for me. And that was the woman in the red dress. That amount of money, the few girls I was seeing, and the nice 2-bedroom apartment. And she was very, very tempting, right? But then I had a choice. Do I stay here at this level, Or do I move back to California with my parents and start up a new business and hopefully make 400K per year? Now, let's say this business takes off and I make 400K per year. Now I have a new temptation. Do I cash out, stay at 400K per year, or do I move on to the next level of growth? And you see how from $250,000 to $400,000, the woman in the red dress gets even more tempting. The same way I had some friends who I went to college with, and they were so laser focused on doing so well in school and in the computer science to get a high paying job. And the first job they got was 6 figures, 100 grand per year. And they decided to completely just stopped pursuing growth in this field. They have their job, time to sit back, relax, a couple Tinder dates per week, 1-bedroom apartment. They're settled down. That was woman in the red dress, and they chose to look at her and not pursue future growth. And after a while, they will come to regret it because you'll just feel like without progress in your life, everything's just so miserable. And some of them decided, you know what? I want to keep making more money. They got back on the bandwagon. They kept focused on grinding. Then they made 250K per year. Woman in the red dress looked at her. Some did, some didn't, some went on to make even more money. But you understand the analogy. At every single level of life, there's a new opportunity to cash out, and it becomes more and more tempting the higher up you go every single level. Now, your next thought might be, so what, I never get to enjoy my life? I just grind. I work like a horse until I die. I grind so hard, I never actually enjoy the fruits of my labor. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. Firstly, because when you work on your essential few, the things that you care so much about, it's no longer work. It becomes play. For example, when I worked as a software engineer in Texas, I hated it. I felt like every minute was an eternity. I would spend 6 hours working and it would feel like somebody's just railing a nail through my head because of how much I didn't enjoy it. But now that I have my own business, I work for 10, 11 hours per day. It's all I think about nonstop, and I'm so happy. Time goes by in an instant, and I love spending pretty much every waking minute working on this business. So if you still just hate the idea of working on something, I'd recommend revisiting the less but better section and finding out what your essential few are. Because if you work on what you're passionate about, it's not work, it's play. But secondly, yes, there is a time to enjoy the fruits of your labor. You do not want to get burned out in life. The key, though, is to make sure that it does not stop your momentum. When I looked at all highly successful people, the trend I've noticed is they all tend to work very, very hard for a few weeks up to a few months. Then they go on a mini retirement to get away from work, 3 to 4 days to about 2 to 3 months max. Now, of course, most people don't do this. They have a very traditional mindset of just working a 9 to 5 job till they're 65 years old. Then they retire, can enjoy their life, but they're like too old to even do anything fun then, and they get bored because they're so miserable and all this garbage like that. We don't want to end up like most people. By breaking up your year with these mini retirements, you have time to prevent burnout, to explore new hobbies, cultivate new interests, visit new places, to be more creative for your self-growth without stopping your momentum. Just taking these breaks so you're still on that upward recline. And what I've found is once you finish your mini retirement, you're now looking forward to get back to work and hitting it even harder. So you're not losing any momentum. You're still on that upwards recline. So mini retirements that I've done is scuba diving for 10 days in Mexico. I went to this like very unique kind of smallish town in the country of Colombia that had like a big rock on it. And then at the end of this year, I'm going to spend 10 days in South Korea and 10 days in Pakistan. Some other examples of this are Bill Gates. He had his very famous Think Weeks, where for 1 to 2 weeks every single year, he just get away from everything at Microsoft and just read books and explore like topics he's very interested in. Tim Ferriss, who created the book, The 4-Hour Workweek, and like created like the term mini retirements, every 2 to 3 months, he just gets away and goes like dancing in Portugal, like tracks animals in Africa. One guy I know, he like is a skier, which is very like unrelatable to me because I mean for many reasons, I didn't have the money when I was younger, and also like I'm very brown skinned, but basically every 2 months he goes on a weekend ski trip. And the really cool thing is the more successful you are by staying focused on your essential few, the more crazy and fun things you can do during your mini retirement. So right now, because I have a lot of money, I can go and travel around the world and do fun stuff like that. But if I was on the broker side, my mini retirement might just be like renting an Airbnb near a national park and just spending time in nature for a few days with zero technology at all. If I had even less money, like I was like really close to broke, that might just be like trying a few new food spots in town and exploring like new parts of my city I'd never been to before. Maybe going like paintballing or something like that. And if I had zero money whatsoever, my mini retirement might just be exploring new things on my computer or just doing a personal project on my computer to get away from the regular work that I usually do. Whatever the case might be, when you're grinding really hard for your essential few and you feel a bit burned out because you've been disciplined for so long, then you'll remember, oh, I have my mini retirement coming up. I already planned this trip to go do that. Finish off working hard strong strong. So without losing your momentum, you come back rejuvenated, ready to hit your goals hard. Now, chances are that today the woman in the red dress is quite ugly for you. But as you become more and more successful by incorporating these frameworks on building discipline from this guide, she will get more and more tempting, and you have to watch out for that. So to end out this section, your section step is to try and think, based on my current life setup and my current income level, what mini retirement would I really want to go on? For how long would I want to do it? Maybe you got a ton of cash, you want to explore some brand new country you've never been to for 2 months. Fantastic. Maybe you're not that well off like the rest of us and you think, you know what, I've always wanted to go surfing my whole life for so many years and I've never gone. You know what, I'm going to rent an Airbnb near the beach, which is about like an hour and a half from me, and I'm going to do that over a weekend. Maybe you have almost no cash at all and you think, you know what, I always want to try this, hot pot or Korean barbecue, and I always want to go to this kind of cool museum someone was telling me about in the city. Plan it out and make it happen. Put it in your calendar, rent the Airbnb, book the tickets for the museum, and make it a reality. Because what you'll find is that when you're excited for that thing coming up in a few weeks or a few months, you get free motivation to get you extra fuel while you work on your essential few. And once you finish that up, you'll feel like, you know what? I see my success now from working on what actually matters. And you're more motivated now going into it, and you'll prioritize your essential few even more, seeing that as you become more successful, you'll get better and better mini retirements. As Nietzsche famously said, I know of no greater life purpose than attempting to do the great. Try to never trade your progress and momentum in life in your essential few. Try to not make the same mistake that I did, and look at the woman in the red dress. Section 9, see what they're missing. Back in 2020, when the lockdowns are here, people were hit hard, especially women of color. Because that's all I was seeing on the news. Yeah, things are real tough, real bad. Yeah, it's real hard. Especially for women of color. Give me a break. Like, our suffering isn't bad enough. We're just not at the bottom of this imaginary victim totem pole. Anyway, people lost their businesses, their livelihoods, their income, their health, their freedom, especially in California. If you were in California, you lost your freedom hard, and especially if you were a woman of color. But there were two people who didn't lose during this time. They gained. Well, everyone else was suffering, and they gained massively. Levels of wealth they couldn't even fathom. Wealth to last generations, even though you and I both know generational wealth doesn't really work out. But they were a donut shop owner and a photographer named Akbar and Alia Sayed. You see, when the lockdowns hit, the government, being the absolute morons that they are, outsourced COVID testing. We'll give you a free COVID test and we'll pay you $20 if you take that COVID test, you get someone tested, find out what the result is, and send them their test result back via, text message, email, letter, whatever. So this, donut shop owner, photographer, they were, middle-class immigrants in Chicago. Things were doing all right, but when the lockdowns hit, not a lot of business for the donut shop, and also zero business for the photography. So they decided, instead of trying to keep our business afloat and kind of come up with some unique family photography stuff, what if we just ditch our businesses completely and instead we go hard on this COVID testing? So they founded the Center for COVID Control, which created these pop-up tents in the Chicago area where people would drive up, get their COVID test, they'd write down their info, they'd go send that test to a lab, find out what the result is, and email their test back to them. And this business took off like a fat kid on Thanksgiving. Pretty much immediately, demand was so massive, they had to hire staff to manage a call center and to set up more tents and manage more tents all across the Chicago area. And during this time, the government was sending them more tests and lots of money. And then started expanding to other states. But it realized, hold up a second, it takes a lot of setup and upkeep to buy the tent and set it up in a parking lot, and then have to work with the parking lot owner and find staff in that area to do the test on people and get their info and then send it back to them. It's a lot of work. What if instead we make a deal with all these local businesses that were shut down, barber shops and nail salons? What if they open the testing center inside of their closed business and we give them a cut of their profits? And they called these business owners Pokemon because they wanted to catch them all. And then they started a referral program. If you tell someone else to get a test done from them and that person gives them your name, you get $10. And they also set up mail-in testing. If you just go on their website and say you want to test via mail, they'll send it to you, you send the test back, and they're collecting more and more and more money. Pretty much overnight, but really it was over the course of an entire year, they expanded to 400 locations in 26 states. They were doing 80,000 tests per day. And they brought in $140 million from the federal government. I'm telling you this story to share with you something very simple but incredibly powerful. And that is how your mindset shifts your perception of reality. There was nothing special about these people. They didn't really have some advanced college degrees, no natural gifts. They had pretty basic level jobs, to be honest. But because they saw the positives of the situation, while everyone else was cowering in fear and, a disease is so scary and my gym is closed and, let me see what my favorite, political commentator says about the whole lockdown situation and, I can't go to this restaurant. And I'm very guilty of this. They shifted their mindset to ask the simple question that I wish I had asked at the time, which was, how do I profit from this? And because they had this very simple mindset shift, while so many business owners around them were struggling and lost everything, and they could have lost everything as well, they became multi-millionaires. Now, if you're wondering, by the way, to be fair, the ending of this story was not a happy one. They committed boatloads of fraud in this process and got caught for it. Because when somebody would drive up to them to get a test done, they would give them 2 tests, a rapid test and a PCR test. They could double bill the government, which is fraud. They would also tell some people, hey, your results are incomplete or inconclusive, come get another test done, bill the government for more tests, which is fraud. They would also just lie and say in their advertising that we'll give your test result back in 1 to 3 days, which was not possible for them to do at all. It took them 5 to 6 days up to a week. But by putting out, hey, we'll get your test result back in 1 to 3 days, people got more tests done. That's also fraud. And lastly, they couldn't keep up with demand at a certain point of this. So they ended up just throwing away tests by the trash bin full. Hundreds of thousands of tests they just threw in the garbage. And they told people, hey, your results are negative, you're fine. There were even people who asked for a mail-in test. And before they even had a chance to send that mail-in test back to them, they got an email saying, hey, your results negative, you're fine. So there are just dozens of lawsuits against them in various states. They're also facing massive fines, giving a lot of that money back to the government, jail time, etc. So they're not having a good time now. But we can apply the same principles they had for having this mindset shift to benefit us in our mission to build discipline and become successful. And the way we do that is through gratitude. Just hear me out for a second. I know that sounds super gay at first. Just be thankful for what you have and God will give you so much more. I sound like everyone's mom. But when you are grateful, it increases your discipline because you have to first be aware of what's happening around you in order to be grateful for it. And you'll notice things like the small wins adding up and the bad habits that you need to quit. So one example of this is, let's say I put a lot of time and effort into making a video on YouTube and that video completely flops. It does terrible, almost 0 views. Most people in my position would think, you know what, that sucks, and move on with my life, whatever. But I would think, hold up, I am grateful this video flopped because now I can study it and know what not to do in the next video. So I study it and turns out, the hook was really bad. I can fix that in my future videos and they'll do much better. And you know what? This video did flop, but overall, my channel's been growing super fast. This one little habit of posting 1 video per day, it's giving me this crazy growth and I didn't even notice how far I've come in the past year. Whereas the other person in the exact same position as me, he wouldn't have even realized the results he's getting, how far his channel has grown from doing the small little habits of 1 video every single day consistently. Especially because we as humans adapt to our environment very quickly. And we talked about this before. For example, yesterday, I'm filming a video, this whole video on discipline, and my car wouldn't start. Dead battery. So I'm like, all right, I have to go all the way to the store in my other car. I have to get a new battery, go to my old car. It's quite cold that day. It's very the battery is very heavy to lean over and put it in the car. I have to unscrew all these bolts and screw them back in. And then I put the new battery in and the car still doesn't start. There's some malfunction problem with it. I have to call, Connect from Costco, have a guy come and tow the car to the dealership. It just threw off my entire day. I really wanted to finish this video on discipline then, and I was in a whole flow of filming, but just wasted a couple hours yesterday and some of today, and I have to still go to the dealership and work everything out. It's complete and utter hassle. But then, because I have a gratefulness mindset, I realize, hold up, I have a car to film in. I have 2 cars that my family owns. And actually, you know what? Battery is expensive to buy and the dealership fees, but this actually isn't a crazy amount of money. There was a time when, buying a new battery for my car, $120. That's really pricey. I was making $10 an hour working at Chuck E. Cheese a couple years ago. So now, because I'm making so much money, it's not really that big of a deal. And yeah, it is a couple hours of my day I have to waste at the dealership and the towing guy, but I don't have a job anymore. I have my own business. I'm in control of my time. If I had a job, it would have been such a bigger hassle. I've come so far in life to where this thing, which used to be a huge hindrance to my life and such a big annoyance, such a big time waster and money waster. Wait, hold up a second. These tiny little habits I've been doing every day to grow my business, they've taken me so far in the past few years. And had I not taken some time to be grateful for that, I wouldn't have realized how powerful these little habits are and how far I've come because of them. In the same way, after I incorporated this gratefulness mindset, I became grateful for obstacles in my life. When I was working with that manufacturer in China to launch this product, it was such a hassle because the guys don't speak English and they have to keep reiterating the same exact point and they still don't understand basic. Hold up a second. I'm working with these manufacturers in China. I'm about to launch a product. I have a separate business. And just a year ago, I was struggling to pay rent because of how expensive San Francisco was. And the people who don't have obstacles in their life are the people who just stay in the exact same spot. One of the worst things you can do. And you know what? That guy I met at the gym who gave me a spot and helped me get that last final rep, he's a pretty chill guy. I'm really grateful for him for giving me that spot. And you know what? I noticed he drives a Porsche and he's very well dressed. Maybe he knows something about business or life. I can ask him for advice. Gratefulness makes you aware of what's happening around you. The little habits adding up, the bad habits you want to kill. Well, most people are just brain dead zombies, not paying attention to anything. But secondly, when you are grateful and you show it, by the way, when I say when you show it, you have to actually say out loud, I'm grateful for this or that, or you write these things down. You can't just think in your head that, I'm grateful. It doesn't really work out that way. Like if you interviewed most people on the street and just asked them, hey, are you a grateful person? Everybody would say yes. But most people would be complaining in their head about, the traffic sucks and my mom's always nagging me and this problem at work. They're not actually grateful. That's like saying, oh, I work out really hard, but in my head. But when you are grateful, it makes you happier. All the science proves this. And when you are just a little bit happier every single day, it benefits all of your essential few because now you're less grumpy when you talk to your wife or, for you, your boyfriend. You're a little bit more focused at work. You are able to understand things and remember them a little bit better. So over time, you get better and better and better. And then once momentum kicks in, you will see huge strides in your life. It's hard to find a very successful person who is super unhappy and miserable. And then lastly, kind of similar to the first point we mentioned, gratefulness makes you more present in the current moments. You notice things happening around you in real time. And by noticing those things, those can benefit you in your essential few. Most people, however, are not grateful. In fact, not even present in life. They just walk around like brain dead zombies. If you look at most people who are just driving their car, they have their mouth hanging open, look like they got hit by a stun grenade in Call of Duty. They're thinking nonstop about all the problems they have and all the issues in their life, versus when you are grateful, you just show up to life differently. You notice, oh my God, the clouds are so crazy. Is no one else seeing this? The way the sun hits the trees and blades of grass, how beautiful that whole color scheme is. You just notice things and opportunities that you haven't seen before. Every single day for the past year and 4 months, I've written down 10 things that I'm grateful for. I do this first thing in the morning. I walk to a park near me, and on that walk there, I'm a bit tired and groggy and it's a bit chilly this morning. But once I do this exercise every single day on the walk back home, I'm speed walking. I'm almost running. I'm so excited to hit my work because I see all the opportunities around me that I want to take advantage of. So if you're wondering, the way that I journal this is every single morning, once I walk to the park, I sit down on a bench and I pull out the notes app on my phone. Then I'll write down today's date. So November 27th, 2023. And then I'll write down any couple of thoughts that are in my head. Maybe it's, that conversation with that guy at the gym was super awkward. I need to be in a better social flow. Maybe it's, I did fantastic, 10 out of 10 at kickboxing practice. Some days literally just, I want to make a lot of money. Once I've done that, I'll write down one thing I'm proud of that I did. And I learned this tip because when you're on self-transformation, you kind of just always feel like a loser. You always want to be more disciplined, more successful. You wish you were here because when you're trying to aspire to be more, you're never satisfied with really who you are. But I'll say, you know what? I am proud that today I threw out the trash before I left the house. Otherwise, it would have been piled up and I would have had a very unclean kitchen, and I hold myself to higher standards. Then after that, I'll write down 10 things I'm grateful for and why. Any things that are in my head. So I'm grateful for the bees for spreading pollen so we can have fruit. I'm grateful for my mentor for teaching me this new tactic to help me make more money. Grateful for X and then Y and then Z. And some days when my head is completely blocked, I'll just say what's literally in front of me. I'm grateful for the concrete so I have a place to stand. I'm grateful for the ozone layer so I don't melt from the sun's rays. And then very quickly at the end, I'll blurb out what my life would be like without those things. So I wouldn't have fruit, I would make less money, wouldn't have a place to stand, the ozone layer, I would be like a melted puddle. And then I'll finally write, I am incredibly grateful for all of these things. And once I've done that, no matter how rough my morning was and I was just not feeling good and I'm kind of still have some poop in my stomach, I didn't have a good poop that morning and I'm feeling off, I immediately just I've drank a potion in Minecraft. My entire demeanor, my outlook, my attitude, everything just immediately changes. And again, every single morning, I walk home so much faster excited to hit the day hard. This entire practice takes me about 8 minutes to do, and I highly recommend it to anyone if they ask me about it. Because again, when you're grateful, you just show up to life differently. You notice the little things adding up and the bad habits you want to kill. You're so much happier, which over time leads to more success in your essential few. And you're present. You notice things that other people around you are not noticing, which will benefit you in life. But to close out this section, your section step is to add one aspect of gratefulness to your daily routine in your calendar. Maybe you say to your mom every morning, thank you so much for keeping the house clean. Or maybe for something else, you switch it up every now and then. Maybe you say to one person throughout the day, you're grateful for them for some reason. Maybe you just tell one of your teachers, thank you for this, this, and this after you finish up school. Whatever the case might be, I would highly recommend you incorporate this into your life. It's very easy to do, but it's also very easy not to do. And you do know how little habits add up. Section 10, escape the Gulag. Imagine this, it's February 4th, 1918 in Kislovodsk, Russia. It's 2 hours past midnight. It's pitch dark, it's freezing. And though the wind has been just howling all night long, there's an eerie quiet that makes you question, has this town ever seen light and warmth? Or has it always been run down and engulfed in darkness? Although there's no way of knowing, you can just sense this is a time of immense hardship, struggle, and famine. In the darkest hours of that night, while the wind is howling and it's so utterly cold, a boy is born named Alexander Solzhenitsyn. He spends his early years watching revolutions and civil wars take place, and his father is killed before he's even 2 years old in that process, while families like his are left to struggle and suffer while Russia goes on to become the Soviet Union. And although the Soviet Union did promise wealth and prosperity under Lenin's rule of Marxism, the utopia never came. And all the Russians ever knew was more harshness and more cruelty. He spends his childhood cold, hungry, and in pain, watching his mother work brutally hard and suffer to try and make ends meet. All the economy continues to collapse. All he's ever known is sorrow. But then, when he's 20 years old, he sees something that he's never seen before in his entire life, something that's almost too good to be true. He sees hope. You see, Alexander, despite not having any real formal schooling, he always loved mathematics and physics. And now he had an opportunity that came up while he was working in the city, where he could both work and study at Rostov University. And in that light, he saw a path of less pain and less hardship if he did well in school. And he was going to do well. He saw a chance to change his life, but his hopes were crushed almost immediately before they even had a chance to really grow deep inside of him, because then the Soviet Union entered World War II. Instead of spending his 20s at school like he imagined them, learning and growing, he was drafted and forced to fight on the Russian front. Cold, hungry, wounded, not knowing if he'd be alive the next day. And imagine after 8 years of tormenting service to the Red Army, blisters and frostbite and flesh infections. One day, he's walking into his quarters. He's grabbed by other men, shackled, chained, arrested, and humiliated while he's marched off to a cell to starve. Somebody found out he said something negative about Stalin in a private letter to his friend. And Stalin sentenced him then to 10 years in a gulag. And although Alexander did suffer brutally, relentlessly, no one should have to suffer as a child and in a service during this war, nothing prepared him for the kind of misery he would experience when he walked into that gulag. And in just his first year there, learning that he has cancer and his life would end early, imagine how angry, frustrated, and hopeless he must have felt in that gulag. Everything good that had ever happened had been taken away from him. All he'd ever known was sorrow. And to throw more insult to this fire fest of injury, the people responsible for all this were Stalin and Hitler. And if you need someone to blame, those are two credible perpetrators. But while he was forced to do this bone-breaking labor in the camp from sunrise to sunset every single day, designed to kill as many people as possible because these camps were overcrowded, and he was fighting infection and disease and hunger while his bones were shaking under the weight of these tools, he had a chance to reflect on his life. He first longed for a better one, but then he thought, how did he end up here? What decisions did he make that increased the odds that he would end up in that gulag? And of course, a lot of things he just didn't know about, right? He could never predict the Soviet Union would enter World War II, things of that nature. But he realized there were times in his life when he purposely told a lie. He made the wrong decision. He did an action that he knew was incorrect. And those actions added up all increased the odds that he would end up in this camp. And while he thought over this and reflected on it, he noticed there were a few people in the gulag who didn't lie, who didn't cheat, who didn't steal or torment others. They conducted themselves nobly. And every single one of those people believed in God. And that got him thinking, what if he had done the same thing his whole life? He had been noble. He'd always taken full accountability over his life and made the right decision. When he had an opportunity to tell the truth or to lie, to do this decision or that decision, he made the right choice. Would he still have ended up in that gulag? And his answer was no. So although Alexander had every single reason to blame the entire world for his amount of suffering in his life, he chose not to do that. He took personal responsibility and took full accountability over his life. It was his fault he ended up in that gulag. And if he couldn't change the past, he would try to right his wrongs. In that gulag, he secretly wrote the book, The Gulag Archipelago. Had it snuck off to Paris where it was published, and it spread like wildfire. And that book destroyed Stalin's brand of communism, and it helped end the Soviet Union. Before Alexander died, he was awarded a Nobel Peace Prize, and he serves as a reminder that we should all strive to take full accountability over our life, because nothing good will ever come from identifying as a victim. But rather, it's in responsibility and accountability that you find meaning, purpose, and success all in your life. In the past 50 years in America, there's been a massive rise in inflation for one thing, especially the last couple, but in values that run counter to individual responsibility, especially in education and in culture. Nobody has sat down and talked to young people about the value of hard, consistent work. So for culture, think about the movies you watched as a kid, the movies in like the 1900s. There was a focus on hard work and perseverance for the main character. Think the Rocky movies. He was fighting against another villain who was bigger than him, who was stronger than him, who had scientists helping him, who was taking drugs. But despite all of that, and despite getting knocked down time after time again, he kept working harder. He never backed down, and he always got back up, and eventually he won. And movies would also put out a message that no matter where you came from, how bad your origin story was, through personal choices, you could shape your destiny, and your actions had consequences, both positive and negative. And the movie Mulan is pretty much a perfect example of this. When the movie starts off, this girl is like small and thin, and she has to work really hard and really smart when she joins the army to make up for her lack of size. And then once she works really hard and really smart, carrying the buckets of water to grow her muscles, then she uses her other characteristics to her advantage, like her smartness and her small size. For example, when they had to sneak into the emperor's palace, men couldn't get in. Security was too tight. But she, because being a woman and got the other men to dress up as women, could sneak in like as the ballerinas. This movie promotes self-reflection, growth, determination, perseverance, all which stem from personal accountability and personal responsibility. But the new 2020 remake of Mulan, this garbage movie, the main character on day one with zero training is a skilled warrior who's better than all the men without having to ever work hard. She doesn't join the army to look after her family and protect her father. It was for more personal reasons. She also has this magical superpower called the chi inside of her, and her magical powers don't come from hard work. It comes from just supernatural abilities. She's just handed everything. And Marvel's TV series She-Hulk is also a perfect example of this. She's stronger, smarter, faster, and more in control of her becoming the Hulk than the original Hulk is, without having to ever work for it. And you can see these themes in old movies versus new movies be completely different. And the same thing goes in education. You don't have to be Einstein to know that college campuses have become a breeding ground for far left wokeism, where instead of talking to kids about personal responsibility and becoming anything they want through hard work, there's a bigger focus on individual expression. And we see this with the whole genders and sexualities and the whole LGBTQ movement. There's also a massive focus on college campuses about identity politics. You're not a unique individual person with your own thoughts, experiences, and achievements. Well, you're black, so you're in this group, so it's +1. And also you're poor, so you're in this group, so +1. But you're also straight, so you're in this group, -1. And you're basically categorized on things you can't control instead of what you've actually done with your life. And the biggest and by far the scariest of all of these is the rise of this victim mentality. It's not my fault I'm this, and that. It's because of the government and big corporations and the economy and taxes. And because of my skin color, my imaginary gender, that's why I'm not successful in life. People feel like they're owed things now and are entitled to whatever they want, even their own opinions. Like this idea of my truth is that X, Y, and Z, even if it defines logic, is absolutely crazy. And it's absurd that we as a society have been able to get away with this for the past 50 years. And to be fair, a big reason why is because we've had a lot of prosperity through fast GDP growth and high GDP growth and tech advancements and solid infrastructure and political stability and globalization. But we're seeing that prosperity end. There's no denying now that tech is starting to remove jobs faster new ones are created. Foreign labor is growing. People are outsourcing. Remote work is becoming way more common. And we all make jokes about this. Your parents telling you to work harder when the house they wanted to buy was 3 times their first salary, and the house you want to buy is half the size and 300 times your first salary, and inflation's so high. But now we're left with entire generations who don't have easy prosperity and have never been taught or don't even know to take personal responsibility and accountability over their lives. Now, if you did just ask this question to people on the street, like, hey, do you take full responsibility over your life? Everyone's going to say yes. Yeah, of course I do. But in reality, we've all been conditioned to blame everyone and everything but ourselves for our life problems. And I'm very guilty of this. My first thought is, I'm late because there's traffic. I don't think, well, why didn't I leave 10 minutes early? My first thought is, it sucks that none of these companies are giving me any interviews. I don't think that, why am I not a candidate that deserves interviews? Why didn't I do more personal projects? My first thought is, man, none of the girls in this town like me. My dating life's struggling. I don't think that, why am I not a guy that deserves to be loved by more women? And I bring this up because what I've found is if you want to be disciplined and see success in all aspects of your life, you have to try and take full, utmost 100% accountability over your life. And that's why everyone from Jordan Peterson, this old guy, skinny twig professor in Canada, who sounds like his parents are Mickey Mouse and Kermit the Frog, all the way to Jocko Willink, this jacked Navy SEAL commander who makes you question how much of a man you are, all promote personal accountability. Because when you can be like Alexander Solzhenitsyn and have every single reason to blame the entire world for your lot in life, but instead you say, my life is my fault. Everything that happens to me is 100% my responsibility. 3 incredible things happen. Firstly, you believe you're in control of your choices and actions. You're no longer just a leaf passively blowing in the wind. You know you can change your destiny. You believe that you make your choices and then your choices make you. Secondly, you can no longer make excuses when you know everything in your life is your fault. And because of that, you will actively find solutions so you don't fail. You won't blame your lab partner for a bad presentation because you know that you should have looked at the slides before he presented them. And thirdly, since you know your life is 100% your fault, you will continue to make consistent efforts through your actions and habits to make sure your life does not end up in a bad spot. Now, I'll admit it was very hard for me to take full accountability over my life because that means that if I'm a loser, I deserve to be a loser. I chose to watch the adult content and jerk off and play video games and eat the garbage food, and that's why I don't have any girls near me, any friends near me. I'm not making the kind of money I want, and I'm always sad and miserable. And I can't blame things like me having a single mom or coming from very, low socioeconomic status and having, brown skin and a big nose. But as much as it sucked at first, after a while I realized, wait, if everything in my life is my fault, then if I choose to do the good actions, I can transform my life. As dumb as it sounds, I can change my destiny from what I do every single day. And that's what I'm trying to do now. If I've made big strides and huge amounts of progress in my life, that's 100% my fault. But if I'm not where I want to be and I still have a lot of progress left to go, then I can change my destiny and make it there. The world is full of finger-pointing, victimized people who claim that everything is set up against them. My guess is less than 1% of the population actually takes full responsibility over their lives. But taking full responsibility over your life, you can already tell, it is the cornerstone to the compound effect. And the day you say that I am responsible for everything that happens to me, you graduate from childhood to becoming an adult. And unfortunately, there's a lot of very big kids running around. So to close out this section, your section step is to get out the Notes app in your phone, create a new note, write down today's date, and write down 11 different times where you commonly blame someone or something else for one of your mistakes. My 2 biggest ones is blaming traffic when really I didn't leave on time. This is actually in my habit tracker right now. I need to kill this habit fast. And the other one is blaming my family for nothing to eat at home when really I didn't make food. Once you've written all these down, you realize you can just change all these things by changing your habits. You will no longer be late. You'll no longer be hungry eating some like garbage, unhealthy, seed oil processed food. When you take care of these, and you can do all of those things on your own. The saddest thing is when you don't take full accountability over your life becomes your gulag. Section 11, are they angels? Imagine this. It is the summer before I enter 7th grade. I'm sitting at the dining table eating dinner and the patio door is wide open right behind me. It brings in a nice, decent breeze, but there's this hot stickiness to the Midwest air. I'm eating chicken kofta, which are kind of like meatballs with naan. And the tips of my fingers are turning yellowish orange. And I know because of the turmeric, they'll be dyed like that for the next few days. And I'm so focused on how good the food is. My grandma cooks incredibly. I forget for a second that I'm sitting with my family. My sister, my mother, and my grandmother. My dad was at the store. So with bites full of this delicious food that I'm stuffing myself with and my high-pitched pre-puberty 7th grade voice, I'm telling them, oh, I can't believe how fast the summer went by. You know, next week we'll get our class schedules for this coming school year. And the Thursday after that, we'll have to go pick out our new locker in the 7th grade section. My mom just cuts me off immediately. What's your class schedule for next year? Even though I had just said, like, we'll get the schedule next week. But you know how brown moms are. So I'm like, oh, well, you know, I was in Algebra 1 last year. I'll probably be in Algebra 2 this year. She cuts me off again. You won't get to Algebra 2. Only the smart kids get to Algebra 2. The kids that study hard over the summer, the kids that work hard over the summer, they're the ones that'll get ahead. Just you watch. Your cousin, he's doing high school level math with this tutor. His parents know how to raise them to be smart, and those kids work hard. They listen to their parents. Just you watch. They'll be the ones that get ahead. But my kids, no. My kids just want to watch their mom struggle. Tomorrow, I want you to finish 5 Kumon packets and then also do some of these extra practice problems. You need to work harder over the summer. And don't you ever expect to just get in Algebra 2. Only the smart kids will get in and you won't. Just you watch me. Now, I know this sounds quite abusive. That's just how you're treated as a brown kid in a brown household. And that year, I did get into Algebra 2 because that's just how school works. You pass Algebra 1, you go to Algebra 2. But my mom was ruthless that year. She made me go to Kumon every single weekday, Monday through Friday for 2 hours. Kumon, if you don't know, is just an after school like math and reading tutoring center. So I would do these packets for 2 hours straight, just sitting on a desk and just drinking water. Then once I would leave there, they give me packets to do at home and I have to do on top of my homework for school. And then over the weekends, while I'm in middle school, I was taking practice SATs and ACTs. I was with pretty much all high schoolers, all Asian kids, doing those. And then additionally, my mom signed me up for summer school that next summer, but not like the smart summer school with like gifted kids, like with the morons and like the mentally disabled kids and the ones from like violent, turbulent households. But even in summer school, when I got all the work done quickly, she would tell my summer school teachers to give me more work to do in class and to take home for homework. But imagine that now we're at the end of summer going into my 8th grade. An entire year has gone by where I've done these thousands of mind-numbing Kumon packets. I have calluses on my fingers. I went to summer school. I did the SAT and ACT prep things over the weekend on top of my regular like 7th grade schoolwork and extracurriculars on that side. And all this stuff is graded too. I can't just do like the bare minimum, just get the thing done. My mom wants high marks. If I mess, like, I get low marks on something, she'll give me 10 more things to do. So I'm exhausted from all this, but I'm sitting down on the couch, my mom's sitting next to me, and between us is the laptop, which I'm pulling up to see my class schedule for 8th grade. And the second it pops up, I can just sense her looking at me and turning with such vigor and anger that I'm gonna get a hard slap to the face. I start shrinking back into the couch because using the laptop as a shield between us. And she's standing on top of me saying, how did this happen? How did you not get into advanced algebra 3? And I just said, I don't know, mom. I got A's both semesters in algebra 2. And the second I said that, I knew I messed up because now I can visibly see rage in her eyes. She is about to come at me. And now she's not yelling. She is full force screaming at me. What did you say? Are those kids in algebra 3? Are they angels? Answer me right now. Are those kids angels? Did they come from the sky? Did God send them here from the sky? And you know when your parents are screaming at you, when you're so frightened, I was always a freezer. I just didn't say anything, but I could sense that she wanted an answer, so I just mumbled out like, no, they're not angels. And she looks at me and says, then why didn't you get in? Why can't you get into this class? If they can do it, why can't you? And my brain should come up with some like cope answer, but I feel like I'm scraping like an empty tub of ice cream. So I just said, I don't know, mom, they're just smarter than me. And that was a big mistake because now she's an inch from my face, just screaming at me. I can feel the house shaking. She's screaming again because those kids work smarter than you. They work harder than you. They work when other kids don't, and that's why they succeed. And she screams at me so loud, I can feel my eardrums about to rupture. And when all this was at an all-time magnitude, and I feel like I'm about to get beaten hard, I'm preparing for this slap on my face, covering my face, she then just turns and walks away. But her words are still ringing through my ears. They're not angels. They're not angels. They're not angels. The story I just told you didn't even do that experience justice. It was a very traumatic experience as a kid and just blew apart my whole world. I'd never seen my mom rage that hard at me at any time in my life before, and that memory is just etched into my mind. But ultimately, I'm very glad that it happened. Going through all those thousands of Kumon packets and having that, life-shattering experience made me realize that nobody is special. Every time, you see some ultra successful athlete that can do these like 10 feet box jumps, or some like rapper who has some like way with words, and he can like make a rap about some random things live in the moment, or some super billionaire. When we see these people, we immediately think that, they're just, I'm subhuman compared to them. They have some unique special ability. I'm just a normie trying to make $1, and because I didn't start 20 years early like they did when they were like training when they were 5 years old, I'll never be as good as them. We all have these thoughts. You see people who are very successful, but the second I had that thought, it was extinguished, gone, because I would remember my mom screaming at me and saying, they're not angels. They just work harder, they work smarter, and they work when other people are not willing to. They're people just like me, and if they can do it, so can I. I'm telling you this story for 2 reasons. Number 1, just obviously because belief is everything. If 2 enemy tribes are going to war, and at one point a tribe believes that they can't win, that tribe's instantly lost, because your beliefs are a self-fulfilling prophecy. What you believe to happen will likely come true. If you believe that this, black pill garbage, that because I don't have a Chad jawline and hunter eyes, girls aren't attracted to me, you'll stay single your entire life. Because mindset matters. If you hate something, or you believe that you'll never achieve it because of X, Y, and Z, it'll never happen. When I went to college, I saw so many of these liberals around me saying, I would never want to be a rich person or a billionaire or like ultra like well off, because those people are evil. They make their money by exploiting other people. I'll never be like them. Like, good, you never will be like them. It'll never happen, because with that mindset, it'll hold you back tremendously in life. So as you start to build discipline in your essential few, and also holding yourself to higher standards in all aspects of life, you may see people who are way ahead of you. Maybe they're influencers, hopefully they are, and you might feel like, I'll never be as good as them. They're on level 200, level of success that I'll never get to, but if I get to level 50, I'll be satisfied. The second you've thought that, you've shot yourself in the foot, and you won't even get to that lesser level anymore, because you now believe you're inadequate. So try to remember that all of us, every single human on this planet, even the ones that you think are super successful and have traits and characteristics and values that you'll never have, we all came into this world naked, afraid, and crying. But through the choices that we made, all of us have went on to live very different lives. And sure, some people do have a genetic advantage or some, initial talent to bump them up, but they simply had the belief that they would be successful, sprinkled that on with a couple good habits, and did that consistently over time to get them to where they are now. They didn't have some computer memory mind, some special gift like steel hamstring cables. So as you go about life and you make your choices, and your choices make you, and hopefully you made the right choices, and you become more and more successful through discipline. Maybe somebody looks up to you one day and thinks that guy must have had some special genetic gifts, a computer memory mind, or steel hamstring cables. But really, you made the right choices, and those compounded with time. And the other reason I told you this story of they're not angels is to try and remember that ultra successful people are just people, and all people make mistakes. Those people have regrets. They ate too much food the night before, and they're on the toilet for way too long. They get divorced. They do cringe things. They stutter and mumble during press conferences and presentations. So if you make a mistake, or a couple of really big mistakes, well, trying to be more disciplined, you picked up another bad habit, you failed to follow your routine, you had a bad influence, you didn't take accountability over your life, whatever the case might be, don't be too hard on yourself. You wouldn't be that hard on a dog you were trying to train. And if being disciplined was easy, everybody would do it, everybody would be special, and then nobody would be special. Instead, try to do what we covered. Habit track, adjust your routine, start with a smaller habit and build it up over time, change your influences, take accountability, etc. You'll find a way to get around this. So to close out this section, your section step is to take a couple of minutes to just think about who is someone that you really look up to. Business titan, pro athlete, celebrity, etc. Google what's some of the dumbest things that person has done. And that'll remind you that all successful people, they're not angels. Section 12, close. You're here because you've been struggling to be disciplined, and you've seen it wreak havoc on your life. You've seen it make you feel like an absolute loser, and you know in your heart you are a loser when you're not disciplined. You've procrastinated and missed opportunities on things that mattered to you. You've gotten inconsistent or no results. You've lost your health, your relationships, your financial well-being, and you have to live with the fact that you have unrealized potential. And worst of all, you don't even feel proud to be you. That's why I highly recommend, for your own sake, you try and take advantage of all these frameworks we've covered, implement them into your life to build discipline and see your life transform. And I'll quickly summarize all 12 of them for you right now. Small habits made consistently lead to long-term success. You are what you repeatedly do, and therefore everyone gets what they deserve. Realize it's easier to be disciplined than to not be disciplined, because when you're not disciplined, you're not proud to be you. Find your essential few, and you'll never work a day in your life. everything becomes play. Create a routine using a calendar and build it up from the ends and the beginnings of your days. Track your bad habits to eliminate them. What doesn't get measured doesn't get managed. Exceed your expectations by holding higher standards for yourself in all areas of life, because higher standards in one area leads to success in all areas. Curate your influences in your life to guarantee success. Take mini retirements a few times a year so your momentum never stops. Practice gratitude every day. Take 100% full accountability over your life. And lastly, realize successful people just have better habits than you. They're not angels. All of these frameworks stem from the compound effect, which is your new opportunity to transform your life, not to get better or have some improvements, but to get rid of your unwanted self. And if all these frameworks did was make you not feel like a loser, make you feel proud to be you, then it would be worth it, wouldn't it? But I think you'll also find success in the things you care about and progress in your life, a life that's now filled with gratefulness, good habits, positive influences, mini retirements, and happiness. You can become the person you've always wanted to be, and your whole life of failures before this will just be a second in your backstory compared to the massive successes you'll have in the near future. But that's only if you take action. There'll be a few people who watch this entire video and despite knowing what to do, will go right back to their old habits and non-routines, and the compound effect will work against them. And day after day after day, their bad habits will grow deeper and deeper inside of them, like the roots on a tree, until one day in 10 years they look around and they've lost everything they've ever cared for, and they're in a hole so deep they'll never climb out of it. I won't lose any sleep over them, but I like you and I want the best for you. So I really hope you do take advantage of all these frameworks, and I recommend you also go back and I've timestamped this entire video, and you can go to the section steps on each one of them and implement all of these things to skyrocket your future success. It's easy to do, but it's also easy not to do. And I think you now know the power of little habits. If you're watching this, listening, and recommend the next thing you do is go back to all the section steps and get them done. And then once you finish doing all 12 of those, I recommend you then check out the description of this video where my free resources are. Check out some cool stuff like my testosterone safe skincare routine to set higher standards for yourself in hygiene and grooming. And lastly, if you did get a ton of value from this video and you quite like these topics, essentialism and the compound effect, you want to dive more into them, I'd recommend you check out the books, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy and the book Essentialism by Greg McKeown. Both of these are linked in my power products in the description below. And last, you can also check out the course, The Science of Well-Being on Coursera. All right, bro, wishing you the absolute best and all the success you can imagine on your discipline journey. I'll see you tomorrow, and try to remember that if you do the thing, you'll have the power.